Are live on YouTube. We are live on TikTok. It is week 15 of the NFL season, and man, is it going to be a wild week. It's already been a wild week in the NFL. Kylo, man, you hate to hear it. You hate to hear it in last place, but I appreciate you still tuning in. How's it going, man? We got a lot of start-sit questions to get to today. There's a lot to talk about. There's endless things to talk about in the NFL right now. Thanks for tuning in. I will try to get to as many questions as I can. Stevenson killed me yesterday. Yeah, Ramondre Stevenson, it really was a good decision to start Ramondre Stevenson. So if you started him, I don't think you should be killing yourself over that. I think the process there was good. There was a good chance it was going to be Mondre's season last night, and it just wasn't. Was not the Pats' night. Should we start Tuesday players with a chance of them not playing? This is a good question, and I think it's the question of the week, and I have a feeling this might not be the last time you are faced with decisions like this. My general thought is if you have a player that is definitely playing, and there's a player currently not playing on Tuesday, but I would not hold out hope that they play. There will be some players that come back Tuesday, but I would not hold out hope. You don't want to be caught with the bag in fantasy. You don't want to be caught with no one to start on Tuesday. I can't think of a example. I also think like it's a player by player thing. So I think like specific players are in different situations than others. So if there's a specific player you're on the fence about starting Tuesday, then I think that's a good conversation to have. We are live on YouTube. We are live on TikTok. Guys, it's week 15 of the NFL season. Come on over to the YouTube live. You can see my top 10 rankings for every single player, every single position. Not every single player is in the top 10, but every position is ranked in the top 10 on the YouTube live. Link is in the TikTok bio. Really quick announcement before I dive into each of these games. Guys, the Android beta version of the WalterPicks app is live. This is not a drill. This is not a drill. You can go get WalterPicks on Android right now. Just search WalterPicks in the Play Store or just click that link in the description below. It's here. It's here, Android people. Henderson or Rashad Penny, what do I do about Sony Michel? Yeah, Sony Michel is a guy that I think you should probably still start, but his floor is going to be much lower now. Same thing with Darrell Henderson. Like, you can't really start Darrell Henderson because the whole reason we were starting Darrell Henderson was because he was seeing 20-plus touches a game, and I just don't think that's going to be the case. I don't think that's going to be the case. Sony Michel is probably going to lead that backfield in touches, but it's going to be a pretty even split. Someone else asked Rashad Penny versus who was that one? Who do you have against Penny there? Let me scroll up for a second. Yeah, Darrell Henderson. Yeah, I'd be playing Penny over Henderson. I am worried that Rashad Penny is a trap this week, though. I'm not going to lie. And I was all over Rashad Penny last week. Had him in my DraftKings lineup. Hopefully you guys played that DraftKings lineup too. I'll show you my DraftKings lineup for today on the YouTube live. And I'll talk through it on the TikTok live as well this week. But I'm not as excited about Rashad Penny this week as I am last week. He played the Texans last week, guys. They're the worst rushing defense in the league. They've allowed by far the most rushing yards per game to running backs this season. They really haven't had a good game against a running back basically this entire season. That's the Houston Texans. That's who Rashad Penny played against last week. That's not who Rashad Penny gets to play against this week. He can only play against the Texans 1 week in a row. And so, yeah, I'm nervous for Rashad Penny. I would be playing him over Darrell Henderson. Obviously, that game's on Tuesday night now. I would be playing him over Darrell Henderson, but I'm nervous about both of them. I do think Rashad Penny's a little bit of a trap this week. I don't think he's a lock. But he obviously is going into that game as the top running back for the Seahawks after that last game. QB ranks. Yeah, let me pull up my top 10 QBs. Let's start there. Let's start with the quarterbacks. Again, you can see my top 10 rankings, every position. If you come to the YouTube live, link to the YouTube live is in my TikTok bio. I'll also just talk through it, though, if you're going to stick on the TikTok live. YouTube just has a few more features the TikTok live does not have. So just come enjoy those new features on the YouTube live. All right. Number one is Kyler Murray. He gets the Detroit Lions this week in what feels like the most lopsided game of the week. And I'm pretty sure the Lions starting safety was just ruled out as well. Not that that really matters. Tom Brady comes in at number 2 in arguably the second most lopsided game of the week, where the Saints are without arguably their most important piece, Sean Payton. Not going to be able to be the head coach of the Saints tonight. I think that's the night game. The Saints could lose this game, I think, by 3 scores or more. But definitely like Tom Brady a lot. The Saints secondary has not been good this season. We talked about this last week. The Saints are a very, very pass funnel offense. They're one of the best rushing defenses in the league, top 5 rushing defense in the league, but they're a bottom 10 passing defense in the league. So they funnel towards the pass, which is not good news when you're playing the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So I'm feeling very good about Tom Brady this week as well. Hopefully you started Patrick Mahomes and Justin Herbert. I was at that game, that Thursday night game, absolutely wild game. At number 3, I got Josh Allen, another really lopsided game this week. I think they were 13.5 point favorites against the Panthers. It's really not even a particularly great matchup for Josh Allen. But I do expect the Bills to score a lot of points after a couple of disappointing games for them. Miami Dolphins' best receiver is out today. Yes, Jalen Waddle. Jalen Waddle is out today, which means it's Devontae Parker season and it's Mike Gesicki season today. And I feel really good about Tua. I'm not sure. Yeah, Tua is my number 8 ranked QB this week. I have him as a top 8 QB play. His floor is really safe. Like, Tua's floor is 15 points. I would be really surprised if he scored less than 15 points. Let me pull this up really quickly. I'm playing Tua in my DraftKings lineup. I think that one's kind of just a layup on DraftKings and FanDuel this week. Definitely more so on DraftKings. The price is a little bit more fair. But guys, Tua has scored at least 15 points in 6 of his 8 games. That's 75% of his games this season. But he's also going up against the Jets today, who have allowed the 8th most points to quarterbacks, and they've allowed at least 15 points to 9 straight QBs. 9 consecutive quarterbacks have scored at least 15 points against the Jets. So, yeah, that's his floor. I like that floor. And I think the ceiling is obviously higher than that. So I like Tua this week. He's my number 8 option. I think he's a really safe play, and he's available in a lot of leagues still. Someone asked me earlier, how am I feeling about Russ? I got Russ ranked number 9. He has such a wide range of outcomes. Like, I'm fine playing Russ in a tournament. Obviously, that game's on Tuesday night now against the Rams. The Rams have also been very volatile in terms of their defensive performance. I think Russ, his floor is below Tua's for sure. And at number 10, I have Justin Fields, who I feel like I'm taking the Bears in this game. The Bears are playing on Monday night. They were the original Monday night game. They're playing against the Vikings. I won't be surprised if the Vikings lose this one, and I do like the matchup for the Bears offense. The Bears are also, though, without like all of their coordinators. They're without, I think, every single coordinator right now. So I don't really know what that means or how that will impact the game. It can't really be good for the Bears. That also could change before tomorrow night. But, yeah, I think the Bears have what it takes to beat the Vikings, and the Vikings defense really has not been impressive this season. All right, so those are my top 10 QBs. If you come to the YouTube Live again, you can see my top 10 rankings, every single position. I got my running backs up now. Hopefully, we all started Austin Eckler on Thursday night. Clyde did not come through for us. If you started Clyde, I still think it was the right process to start Clyde, though. Like, you can't go wrong starting a guy in a game with a 54 over-under against one of the worst running defenses in the league. What is up, Sam? Happy Sunday. Happy Sunday, Sean. Man, we got to be grateful for every Sunday we have left, Sean. Especially if you're still in your fantasy league. You got to be grateful every single game you got left. Because whether you win the league or not, there's not that many games left, man. There's not that many games left, so I'm grateful for this Sunday. Should I bench Amari for Devontae Parker and start Aaron Jones at flex? These are 3 guys that are going to be tough to decide between, Sean. I got to be honest with you. I'm playing Amari Cooper over Devontae Parker. I bet their projections are really close in the WalterPicks app, which, guys, if you haven't checked out the WalterPicks app yet, you got to check it out. You can compare any 2 players. We actually just gave everyone 25 free start-sit comparisons. So basically, the start-sit tool in the WalterPicks app is free for the rest of the season. So go check it out. There's really no reason not to. It's completely free. You can find the link to the app in my TikTok bio or YouTube description. But, yeah, I think I would be going Amari Cooper over Devontae Parker. Amari Cooper just has the better matchup. I like Amari Cooper's prop today, actually. He is potentially going to be the free prop pick of the day, not to tease you guys too much. But I do like the matchup for Amari Cooper. I do. I like the matchup against the Giants over Devontae Parker's matchup against the Jets. I do think Tua is going to do well. I'm obviously not very scared of the Jets secondary, but the Jets run defense has been by far their biggest weakness. Tua or Taysom Hill? Yeah, I'm playing Tua over Taysom Hill. I want nothing to do with Taysom Hill. I want nothing to do with Taysom Hill this week. I know he's been good. He's actually really been good in almost all of his starts going back to last year, and it's because of his rushing, and that makes him viable in fantasy. It's made him a top 12 QB, I believe, in his last 2 starts, maybe even his last 3. Yeah, back to back weeks, Taysom Hill has finished as a top 5 fantasy football quarterback. Back to back weeks, he's finished as a top 5 fantasy football quarterback, and I still don't really want anything to do with him. This week feels like a very dangerous week for Taysom Hill. It does. This is not a good matchup for Taysom Hill against the Bucs. The Bucs are built perfectly to play against a guy like Taysom Hill. They really are. Similar to the Saints, the Buccaneers are a far superior run defense than pass defense. They're another one of these funnel defenses. But this, unlike the Saints against the Bucs in this game, the Bucs funnel defense is going to work perfectly against the Saints. Right? Like the Saints pass funnel defense, that's not a very good thing when you're going up against Tom Brady in the passing attack that has thrown the most deep attempts per game so far this season. But the Saints offense is the opposite. The Saints with Taysom Hill are really, they just can't throw. And so against a pass funnel defense, I'm nervous for Taysom Hill. I am. And that's why he's not in my top 10 this week. It's why I have Tua ranked ahead of him. It's why I have Justin Fields ranked ahead of him. It's why I have Russell Wilson ranked ahead of him. And I understand you can still start him. He still will. He will still probably rush for 50-plus yards. But I'm nervous for him. I am. I'm nervous for him in this matchup. I don't think it's a good matchup for Taysom Hill. Chase or Deontay Johnson, yeah, you can't bench Deontay Johnson at this point in time. You really can't. You can't. My wide receiver rankings, let me pull those up on the YouTube Live again. If you come to the YouTube Live, you can see my top 10 rankings, every single position. And you'll see Deontay Johnson in the top 10 yet again, like he's been basically every single week that I can recall. Deontay Johnson, guys, he has at least 10 targets in all but 2 games this season. He's really been, for anyone watching the Steelers closely, the number 1 receiver for the Steelers dating back all the way to the beginning of last season, even with Juju playing. He's led that team in target share in the vast majority of games he's played. I think it's over 80% of the games he's played. So, yeah, I like Deontay Johnson. His floor is just so safe. But he also has a good matchup this week. He does. He has a good matchup this week, too. The Titans have allowed the most fantasy points per game to wide receivers this entire season. You'll see Deontay Johnson in my DraftKings lineup this week as well. So you guys just have discovered 2 guys, Tua and Deontay Johnson, both going to be in my DraftKings lineup. Michael Carter is back, guys. Michael Carter is back, and it's at the perfect time. And you really have to strongly consider playing him. It's really not the best matchup for Michael Carter. Like the Dolphins' run defense has been better recently. They started horrible. The first month of the season, the Dolphins were a bottom 5 run defense. They switched more to a man-to-man scheme, which has caused them to be a far worse pass defense, but a better run defense over the last month. So that defense has really changed a lot throughout the season. But I think regardless of the matchup for Michael Carter, you got to feel pretty good starting. In his last starts, he had at least 10 carries in all of them, and he was getting pretty consistent volume through the air too. He had 2 games in a row with over 8 receptions. Like in a PPR league, you should probably be starting Michael Carter. In a PPR league, he could get 5 catches this week easily. When will Thielen and A.J. Brown come back? I'm really not sure. I'm not sure when either guy's coming back. Because I don't think they've given us a timeline, really, for either of those guys. Mooney, Van Jefferson, or let's start there. Darnell Mooney or McLaurin. Yeah, you got to play McLaurin. I know McLaurin's been bad. We also don't know who the quarterback for Washington is yet. Like, we just don't know. I think Heineke and Kyle Allen are both on the COVID list right now. But with the new rules from the NFL, we actually talked about this. I went live very quickly before the Thursday night game. I was live at SoFi Stadium, and I showed this tweet. Let me see if I can pull this up again. Obviously, this has already had some ramifications at this point. Was it this one? Wasn't that one? Yeah, it was this one. The NFL changed its protocols. If you're watching live on TikTok, I pulled up the tweet behind me. But the new protocols make it possible for anyone who's tested positive this week to test back in and play this weekend, which I think has already happened. Like Jalen Ramsey, for example, he's playing tomorrow or Tuesday, even though he tested positive earlier this week, because I guess he's testing negative now. And this has not been how it was before. This season, really almost every single person that went on the COVID list missed at least a game. So this does change things. Like, I expect Heineke or Kyle Allen, there's a very good chance one of them's back for Tuesday, which I would not have said confidently just a couple weeks ago in the same situation, given this rule change. So something to monitor. But yeah, I'm playing Terry McLaurin over Darnell Mooney, and I'm playing Terry McLaurin over Van Jefferson as well. Hey, Sam, love the content, but do I start Devontae Parker, Russell Gage, or Christian Kirk at the flex? Yeah, honestly, I think Russell Gage is slowly becoming Sam's kryptonite. I've been so against Russell Gage the last couple of weeks, and he just continues to see very consistent volume. Like, I've been wrong about Russell Gage. I think each of the last 2 weeks. Let me pull up his game logs really quickly. And by the way, if you haven't been watching me for very long, I'm very, very transparent when I lose. I get things wrong all the time. And I've been wrong about Russell Gage. Yeah, he's at least 10 points in 4 straight games. His floor is much higher than I thought it was. Week 10, he had 0 points. He put up a donut. Actually, he did that in week 8 as well. So he had 2 donuts in the span of 3 weeks. And then he follows that up with 4 straight games over 10 points. He's had at least a 70% snap share in all those games. He's seen at least 6 targets in all those games. Like, he actually does have a reasonable floor. Christian Kirk does seem like intriguing this week too, with DeAndre Hopkins out, Devontae Parker obviously with Jalen Waddle out. I personally would be going with Devontae Parker still here. Is Godwin going to be irrelevant with AB back next week? No, he's not going to be irrelevant. He's not going to be irrelevant. And man, I can't believe how much time Antonio Brown has missed. And it sounded like he was really close to actually being kicked off of the team. DK lineup. Let me pull up the DK lineup, Nick, on the YouTube live. Again, we're live on TikTok and YouTube. Guys, if you're watching live on YouTube, smash the like button. Hit that subscribe button too. If you're watching live on TikTok for the first time, hit the follow button. Here's the DraftKings line. People asking for it in the TikTok live too. If you come to the YouTube live, it's up. It's up. I'm feeling pretty good about this one. Honestly, last week I showed you a tournament lineup. This week I'm showing you a lineup that I think can be used in tournaments and head-to-head, but it was originally made for a head-to-head contest. I'm going with Tua at QB. I think on DraftKings, Tua is pretty clearly the top value this week. Again, I think his floor is 15. The Jets have allowed 9 consecutive quarterbacks to score at least 15 points, and Tua himself has gone over 15 points in 75% of his games this season. So it's a good floor against a bad defense, where the ceiling is certainly 30+. So I like Tua at a great value. I also I do not hate going with the Ravens backup quarterback. I don't expect Lamar to play today, and the Ravens backup is really cheap. Obviously, he's going to rush a lot. So I don't hate him as a play. Let me pull this up really quickly. I think he's a better tournament option than head-to-head option. Like, he doesn't seem like he's worth the risk in a head-to-head contest. But Tyler Huntley is definitely an option in tournaments because he's not going to be on very many rosters. But the rest of this lineup, running back, James Robinson. Guys, James Robinson is going to be freed this week. We have free James Robinson. Urban Meyer's gone. That can only be a good thing for James Robinson. But it also comes in the perfect matchup for the Jaguars against the Houston Texans. The Houston Texans, the worst rushing defense in the NFL. You got to be starting James Robinson with so much confidence this week. I know he's been bad, but there's just the stars are aligning for James Robinson to go win fantasy leagues in the first week of the fantasy football playoffs. So start James Robinson. I'm starting him on DraftKings with a lot of confidence today. I'm also starting Jeff Wilson, who has a good matchup against the Falcons. They've been a bottom 10 run defense this year, and he's the starting running back. I know Deebo Samuel is going to be there to steal some carries as well, who I'm also starting in this game. I'm also going to start Deebo Samuel. I feel like getting lost in the Deebo Samuel injury is how good of a season Deebo Samuel is having. Deebo Samuel's first game under 10 points was last week, and he just didn't play that much. Like, his floor is so high, and obviously the ceiling is astronomical too, especially against the Falcons. So I'm playing Deebo Samuel too. I just don't think that many people are going to play Deebo Samuel this week based on the narratives. I lied. He didn't even go under 10 points last week because he He had one catch for 22 yards. So that got him to almost 13 points. So he still has not had a single game under 10 points. His floor is just so high. So yeah, I'm starting Deebo Samuel for sure this week. And then the wide receiver I'm going with that's going to help me pay up for a lot of these other guys in my lineup is Gabriel Davis, who ran a route on 80% of Josh Allen's dropbacks last week. Emmanuel Sanders is out, so I'm going with Gabe Davis. Someone's asking Myles Gaskin or Michael Carter. I'd be going Michael Carter over Myles Gaskin. I like both of them. In a PPR league, though, I like Michael Carter's ceiling more. But I do think Gaskin's probably going to get more carries than Carter. And I also do think the Dolphins beat the Jets. And the Jets' run defense is worse than the Dolphins' run defense. But again, in a PPR league, I care more about receptions. That's why I'd start Michael Carter over him in a PPR league. If it's not PPR, though, I'd definitely go Gaskin. Thoughts on starting McLaurin this week? Yeah, you kind of just have to start him in most situations. He's been really bad. I think 3 straight weeks now. And again, we don't know who the quarterback is because Kyle Allen and Heineke are both on the COVID list right now, but both could potentially come back in time for the game. So I think you start Terry McLaurin in what is a good matchup. If you have him, I think you start him. He's coming off a 0-point game. A 0-point game where he had 100 air yards and 4 targets. But he only ran 14 routes in that game. He ran 14 routes. He was targeted on – that game was horrible from Washington. By the way, that was my lock of the week last week. The Cowboys versus Washington. That was the lock of the week against the spread, which puts me up to 60% accuracy now on the locks. And I have, I think, 2 locks today. I think it's 2. Let me pull this up really quick. Yeah, I had 2 locks today against the spread. One of them is the Steelers are 1-point favorites against the Titans. That kind of surprised me. I think the Titans are better than the Steelers. I think the Titans beat the Steelers. So I'm taking the Titans +1 against the Steelers. Connor or Edmonds full PPR? Yeah, you got to start Chase Edmonds over James Conner in a PPR league. You kind of have to. I'm pretty nervous about James Conner this week. He's playing. He was dealing with an injury that he suffered right at the end of the last game, and then that led to the coach commenting about, yeah, we can't give James Conner this many touches. He literally said that out loud right after the game. That's concerning. That's concerning for James Conner. And Chase Edmonds is the better receiver. He does get more targets. In games played with Chase Edmonds, James Conner is averaging under 1 catch a game. Meanwhile, Chase Edmonds averaging, I think, 4 or 5. James Conner still has the better chance at the touchdown. Don't get me wrong here. So it isn't like a very clear-cut decision. But again, I'm just going to lean towards the guy that I think is going to be a better receiver. And that's Chase Edmonds. So yeah, I think I'd play Chase Edmonds over James Conner. But it's definitely tough. Another tough one is Sony Michel versus Darrell Henderson. And that one I'm going to start Sony Michel. I don't feel great about it. But these are the situations we're in. It's week 15. Well, a lot of guys coming back from injury. Edmonds or Carter? Kevin, let's come full circle here. Chase Edmonds versus Michael Carter, very similar plays this week. We just outlined why both those guys are pretty similar plays. But personally, I like Michael Carter more than Chase Edmonds because the difference between these two guys, one of them's starting, one of them's not. One of them is just more locked into his role than the other, and it's Michael Carter. So yeah, I'm going with Michael Carter over Chase Edmonds. Sam, please save my season. I need help. Pick 2, Odell, Ayuka the Bazooka, CeeDee Lamb, I need boom. Yeah, if you played against Jonathan Taylor, if you played against Travis Kelce, if you played against Tyreek Hill, you got to take some risks today. You got to go for the upside. This is exactly why we designed the WalterPicks app, how it's designed. It shows you not only a player's projected points, but also shows you their ceiling, the probability that they can score 25-plus points. And you can go find that info completely free on the WalterPicks app right now. We gave away basically the entire start sit tool is free right now. And we are on Android now too. So no excuses, Android people. Link is in the YouTube description and the TikTok bio. But yeah, for this one, you really can't bench CeeDee Lamb. So it's down to Odell versus Ayuka the Bazooka. And that's close. That's a close one. Ayuk does have a good matchup against the Falcons. And Odell does have a good matchup against the Seahawks. Odell has scored, I think, 3 touchdowns now in his first 3 games as well, which you got to feel pretty good about for Odell Beckham Jr. Deebo Samuel also, I think, will be back to fuller health today, which isn't good for Ayuk, but the Falcons are the better matchup over the Seahawks. I think I'd go with Brandon Ayuk over Odell. I think they both have a high ceiling. I do. I think they both have a high ceiling. But I'm going with Brandon Ayuk over Odell Beckham Jr. Ayuk has been on fire. He really has. Osborne, Gage, Gallup, or Sanders? Yeah, I'm assuming you mean Emmanuel Sanders here because these are all receivers. Emmanuel Sanders is not playing today. That's why I have Gabriel Davis in my DraftKings lineup. But yeah, I think honestly, I like Osborne and I like Gage more than Gallup. I like Osborne and Gage more than Gallup. Honestly, Gage is probably the safest one. We just walked through it, but he's gone over 10 points in 4 straight games now. Which defenses do you like, Austin? The cheapest defense, and the defense is probably available still in a lot of leagues that I like this week. It's the Jaguars, man. It's the Jaguars. They're going up against the Texans, who certainly are not a scary offense. The Jaguars' defense has weirdly been okay this season, like way, way, way better than I would have expected them to be. But regardless of the situation in this game, Texans versus the Jaguars, this is going to be a game where the Jaguars go all out. Given their situation, this is the game that they most want to win this season. And I feel pretty good about the narrative around that. Not a very mathematical narrative here with the Jaguars versus the Texans. But I do think the Urban Meyer firing is only going to help the Jaguars. It's really only going to help them. And again, it's a good matchup against the Texans. The Jaguars defense really hasn't been so bad this season. Tony Pollard or Lazard? Yeah, you really just can't be starting Tony Pollard or Pollard. You can't start. The reports are, so first of all, he's dealing with a torn ligament in his foot. I think his like plantar fascia is torn or something bad. That apparently he can play through, but it's going to be painful. And the report this morning was that he maybe could play a dozen snaps. You're going to really start a guy in fantasy that's maybe going to play a dozen snaps. That's not a dozen touches. That's a dozen snaps. Like that means he could easily see under 10 touches today. So no, I want nothing to do with him in fantasy. Carter or Jeff Wilson? Yeah, this one's closer. This one, honestly, I think I would go with Jeff Wilson. But again, if it's a PPR league, I think it's much closer. In a PPR league, I don't think you're crazy for starting Michael Carter over Jeff Wilson. Tua, Fields, or Jimmy G as a Lamar replacement. Yeah, let me pull up my QB rankings. This one, my QB rankings on the YouTube Live. Again, link is to the YouTube Lives in the TikTok bio. You're like a few presses of your finger away to my top 10 rankings every position. And yet, I think you should go Tua. I have Justin Fields actually ranked 2 spots behind Tua. Jimmy G is not even in my top 10. I think Tua is a really good option. I do. His floor is really safe. He's got a safe floor. And by the way, I don't think Tua is getting enough credit this season. Really, nobody gives this man any credit. The second he makes mistakes, everyone's very quick to jump on Tua. But I really have not seen a single person give this guy some credit. Listen to these Tua stats. True completion percentage, which is completion percentage, but you take away throwaways and drop passes. Tua has completed 75% of his passes in those situations. That's second best in the league. He has the third highest play action completion percentage in the league. He has the highest red zone completion percentage in the league. He has the second highest deep ball completion percentage in the league. Those were all top 5. Those weren't even all top 5. Those were all top 3. So Tua is top 3 in true completion percentage, play action completion percentage, red zone completion percentage, and deep ball completion percentage. The man deserves more credit. He deserves more credit. And I feel pretty good about him this week against the Jets. Dolphins or Jags defense. Yeah, both are good. Both are good options. I don't think the Dolphins are a bad play. The Dolphins are probably a little bit safer. But the Jaguars actually do have the better matchup. The Texans, I think, have been the second worst opponent or second best opponent for defenses this season. Number 1 is the Jaguars. Number 5 is the Jets. So, I mean, they're all in the top 5. But yeah, I think I like the Jaguars maybe a tiny bit more than the Texans. But I would argue the Dolphins maybe are a little bit more safer. A little bit more safe. AB thoughts. Yeah, Jordan, I really thought it seemed like there was a really good chance Antonio Brown's career was done like just a week ago. It seemed like that was a realistic thing. The Bucs and Bruce Arians were going back and forth about whether or not to even keep him. I mean, he faked a vaccine card, which is just absolutely ridiculous. So he missed 3 games for that, but he's also been out with injuries. But he's coming back, and it's going to be big for the Bucs. It really is. I don't think it's going to have a massive fantasy impact. Obviously, if you have Chris Godwin, if you have Mike Evans, or if you have Antonio Brown and you're in the fantasy playoffs still, it will affect things. I still think Godwin and Mike Evans can have really big games with Antonio Brown. But I think it does have a big impact on the league in general. Antonio Brown helps the Bucs a lot. He's still very, very talented. Those are my thoughts. All right, Sam, how's it going? Also, how was the game yesterday? It was brutal, man. Absolutely brutal. And my pessimism for the Patriots has shot right back up. It shot right back up. This is typically how it goes for Sam, who personally I think I'm one of the most pessimistic Patriots fans that there is. I've said all season that they're not Super Bowl contenders, that I really would be surprised if they even made it to the AFC Championship game. And I think the only realistic path that the Patriots have to making an actual run in the playoffs is home field advantage and a bye in getting the 1 seed in the AFC, which somehow they're in contention for. But I don't think it's happening, man. I don't think they beat the Bills next week either. Going into their last 2 games and in this upcoming game, I said they needed to win 2 of the 3 games for me to be actually convinced that they could make a run in the playoffs. They obviously beat the Bills in that wild, windy game. By the way, no wind to be concerned about today. Now they lose to the Colts. It was not a good matchup against the Colts. The Pats' run defense is really the weakness of the team. And now they get the Bills next week. And if they lose that game, I mean, they're just done. For a WalterPicks app, literally has OBJ and Devontae Parker as equal matchups. Oh, man. Who do I start? Yeah, it's so close. It is very close, Maddie Smokes. And thanks for checking out the WalterPicks app, by the way. We are live on Android as well, Android people. Not a drill. We are live on Android. But, yeah, I think that, like, for me, the tiebreaker when deciding between 2 guys that are really close is usually the upside. Like, which guy has the higher boom percentage? And if it's the same, then I usually just go with whoever has the better matchup. Odell Beckham Jr. is up against the Seahawks. They've been pretty bad against receivers this season, though I think they have been better of late. Yeah, they actually rank as a top 8 defense against receivers right now. And they've been better over the last month. Meanwhile, Devontae Parker gets the Jets. And the Jets have also been pretty good against receivers, but they've been pretty bad overall. And they still have allowed a lot of big days to receivers. I think Devontae Parker is the better option over Odell Beckham Jr. I feel better about Devontae Parker this week than I do Odell. Devontae Parker really hasn't had a bad game this season. Like, the vast majority of his games, he's played well. So, yeah, I think I would go Devontae Parker over Odell. But it's definitely close. It is a close decision. Similar matchups. To me, similar ceiling. I would argue Parker's floor maybe a little bit higher. You're the best. Need help. Do you think Tyler Lockett will play? Yeah, I don't think so. I could be wrong. But Tyler Lockett's the perfect example. And this is exactly why I said I think we got to take this on a player-by-player basis with a lot of these decisions where you got to decide, do I start this guy over a guy that's playing Tuesday because, like, this guy like Tyler Lockett is out Tuesday. And so you might have to play a guy like Devontae Parker, for example, over Tyler Lockett because we don't know if Tyler Lockett's going to play. And I think that's the right process. I would be playing a guy like Devontae Parker over Tyler Lockett because I do not think Tyler Lockett's going to play. Obviously, again, there's a chance that he does, given the new testing systems. I'm not going to hold out hope for that. Henderson or Montgomery? Yeah, it's got to be David Montgomery. How do you feel about Reynolds? Are we starting Josh Reynolds in the fantasy football playoffs? If you are, I hope there's at least 14 teams in your league. But no, I think Josh Reynolds is kind of establishing himself as a top receiver for the Lions. He's had at least 8 points in 3 straight games, at least 50 yards in 3 straight games. He's played at least 80% of the snaps in 3 straight games. He's got at least 5 targets in 3 straight games. I don't think his ceiling's that high. I don't think he'll have a game with 20 points this season. But if you have Josh Reynolds, I don't think that's really what you're hoping from. And I think he's established somewhat of a nice floor. given the offense that he's in. We are live on YouTube. We are live on TikTok. I got my top 10 tight ends scrolling across the bottom of the screen on the YouTube live right now. We put my top 10 wide receivers, and yet again, you'll see at number 1, Cooper Kupp, man. Cooper Kupp having an absolutely insane season. Really, we're seeing some impressive individual seasons this year from Cooper Kupp, from Jonathan Taylor, and from Tom Brady, who is going to win the MVP. Guys, Tom Brady is going to win the MVP. I know a lot of people aren't going to like it. A lot of people are going to start arguing for Jonathan Taylor. A lot of people will start arguing for Kyler Murray. But it's going to be Tom Brady. And this isn't even me saying it should be Tom Brady. I just think it will be Tom Brady. I think who it should be is a good debate. But if we're talking about who it actually will be, I don't think you can convince me that it's not going to be Tom Brady. Tom Brady's going to win the MVP. It's going to bother a lot of people, but I think that's what's going to happen. Again, I don't think that necessarily is what should happen, but I think that is what will happen. I think Brady wins. He's got a pretty easy schedule the rest of the season, too. Amon-Ra St. Brown, Russell Gage, KJ Osborne, Adam Thielen, pick 2, full PPR. I don't think Adam Thielen's playing. Right? I don't think Adam Thielen's playing. I could be wrong about this. Let me pull up the latest Adam Thielen report. I think he's actually in a similar bucket as Tyler Lockett, but I could be wrong. There's a lot of news, obviously, to keep up with this week. All right, he's not. He's not on the COVID list. He's listed as questionable with an ankle injury against Chicago. Thielen didn't practice this week, but is capable of playing without practicing. The Vikings are expected to take him to game time. Even if active, Thielen isn't going to be 100%. And playing on the Monday night slate makes this a situation to avoid. So I would say only start Adam Thielen if you also have KJ Osborne. Because if you have KJ Osborne, which you do here, then start one of those guys. If Thielen plays, start Thielen over Osborne. If Thielen doesn't play, obviously you're starting Osborne. And then I would be playing Russell Gage, I think, over Amon-Ra St. Brown. So that's what I would do. If you have Thielen, you hope that he plays. If he does play, you play him over Osborne. If he doesn't play, obviously you're gonna go with Osborne, who gets a bump for sure if Thielen is out. Guys, we are live on TikTok. We are live on YouTube. Come to the YouTube live. You can see my top 10 rankings, every single position, my favorite picks against the spread for the day, my DraftKings lineup, and a free player prop pick, all found on the YouTube live. Link is in the TikTok bio. Luke's asking us, Rashad Penny or Michael Carter? I'm going Michael Carter over Rashad Penny. I said it at the beginning of the stream. We were all over Rashad Penny last week. I hope everyone got that dub with Rashad Penny. Scored over 30 points, I'm pretty sure, last week. But it was against the Texans. The worst run defense in the league. That's why we were really on Rashad Penny last week. We knew that he could outperform Alex Collins. And we knew Pete Carroll said whoever looked better was going to get more of the ball. And then we also knew he was going against the worst run defense in the NFL. No defense has allowed more rushing yards per game to running backs than the Texans. But that's not who Rashad Penny gets to play this week. So I'm nervous about it. I am nervous about it. I think he's very risky. I do not think Rashad Penny's a lock by any means. I do think he has a ceiling still. I do think he's a ceiling still. But I like Michael Carter a lot more than Rashad Penny, especially in a PPR league. I'm playing Michael Carter over Rashad Penny. I think you really kind of have to start Michael Carter in a PPR league. Why don't you have a donate button? Because I'm not looking for donations, man. I am looking for you to go subscribe to the WalterPicks. That would be my biggest ask of anyone. There's nothing you could do to support me more than going and doing one of the premium subscriptions in the WalterPicks app. That's the best way to help me out. We got thousands of subscribers in the WalterPicks app, and they are the literal reason that I get to do this every Sunday. They're the reason we have 32 TikTok creators on our team. And they're the reason that the app is just going to continue to improve. We really take almost all the subscriptions, all the revenue from subscriptions goes straight back to just improving the experience in the app for all the subscribers. Zeke or Saquon half PPR? Oh, God. I'm nervous about Saquon. Yeah, Jordan, definitely hold Penny. I'm nervous about Saquon this week. But I think I'm more nervous about Zeke. I think I'm more nervous about Zeke. And Zeke actually had one of his best games of the season against the Giants earlier this year. But it just feels like Zeke is in such a different situation now than he was then. His last game against the Giants was week 5. He had 21 carries in that game. 21 carries. And 2 catches. So 23 total touches. He had 112 yards, 2 TDs. 25 points, finishes a top 10 running back. That's what we expected from Zeke this season. But then you look at his last month, and he doesn't have a single game with more than 13 carries. And these were some games where the Cowboys were winning. He doesn't have a single game with more than 70 yards. And he doesn't have a single game with more than 1 touchdown. He actually has only scored 1 touchdown in his last 4 games. He's now had back-to-back games under 10 points. He hasn't finished as a top 10 running back since week 10, and that was against the Falcons in a pretty good matchup. I'm nervous about Zeke. The fact that they're trying to play Tony Pollard through this injury, I think is a bad sign for Zeke. The fact that they're saying Corey Clement is going to continue to be involved, it's pretty telling that they are trying to limit Zeke's workload. And so if Zeke doesn't score a touchdown, he's probably scoring less than 10 points. So that's why I think I like Saquon more than Zeke. Because I think Saquon is going to get more touches than Zeke. It's a worse matchup for Saquon. But I don't think you're crazy for starting Saquon over Zeke. I do think it's close. QB rankings. Yeah, let me pull these up. Michael or Gabe Davis at flex. Yeah, I like Gabe Davis. I'm playing in my DraftKings lineup, but definitely Michael Carter. Definitely Michael Carter over Gabe Davis. Help. Do I start Amon-Ra St. A lot of you thinking about Amon-Ra St. Brown this week. Wait to see if Tyler Lockett can play. Yeah, I wouldn't be waiting. I wouldn't be waiting for Tyler Lockett. I just wouldn't. It's too risky. It's too risky to wait for Tyler Lockett. It really is. The only scenario where I would wait for Tyler Lockett is if I was down big. Like if I'm down so big that there's no way like a guy like Amon-Ra St. Brown is going to bring me back. Like what's Amon-Ra St. Brown's ceiling, right? Like I would be pretty surprised if he scores 20 points in a week. Obviously, Tyler Lockett's ceiling is like 50 points. Tyler Lockett is one of the highest ceilings among all receivers every week. Yeah, Amon-Ra St. Brown is 1 game over 20 points this season. But he has had back-to-back games over 15. He's not a horrible option. He's had back-to-back games with 12 targets now. Him and Josh Reynolds are starting to establish a pretty nice floor. But yeah, the only scenario where I'm holding out hope for Tyler Lockett is if you're down big. If I went up against Jonathan Taylor and or Travis Kelce and or Tyreek Hill in these first couple games of this week, like maybe then you hold out hope for Tyler Lockett because you just got to shoot for the absolute ceiling. But otherwise, it doesn't seem like a smart move to hold out hope for Tyler Lockett. Taysom or Stafford? Yeah, I'm really nervous about Taysom. I feel like this is a really bad matchup for him. This is not a good matchup for Taysom Hill. I'm nervous about Taysom Hill. I don't want to start him. I'd be playing Stafford. Michael Carter or Aaron Jones? Yeah, it's so easy to be panicking about Aaron Jones, but I think you have to start Aaron Jones. You have to start Aaron Jones. Do you feel comfortable starting Allen Lazard? No. Comfortable is not the word I would use to describe my feelings about starting Allen Lazard. Allen Lazard could easily score 0 points this week. Easily. He's coming off his best game of the season, but there's no real reason to expect his role in the offense grows this week. It's unclear if Tyler Lockett was a COVID positive or if he was just a close contact, but either way, guys, it's going to be tough for him to get cleared in time for the game. It's possible. It's possible he gets cleared. But I would say it's less likely that he gets cleared than it's less likely that he plays than that he doesn't play. Fields or Huntley? Yeah, I think I would go with Fields over Huntley. AJ Dillon, Judy, St. Brown, Terry, pick 2. I'm playing Terry McLaurin. I am over all those. I'd probably play AJ and Terry. Someone's asking for the free prop pick. Come to the YouTube Live. Smash that like button on the YouTube Live. Hit that subscribe button too. Guys, we're really close to 6,000 YouTube subscribers, which I'm super pumped about. It's been one hell of a season. Hey, Sam, can you please pick up one Galladay, Anderson, Boyd? Robbie Anderson's coming off his best game of the season. He's certainly not a safe play either. I don't love Tyler Boyd. His floor is kind of steadily declined this season. But I don't like Kenny Golladay either with Mike Glennon. Robbie Anderson going up against A.J. Terrell, one of the best corners in the league last week. Turned 12 targets and 84 yards and a touchdown. Honestly, don't think you're crazy if you go Robbie Anderson. Though I am pretty nervous about the Panthers' offense this week too. I think all of these guys are risky. But personally, Dan, I would be going Anderson or Golladay for the ceiling. Do not start Chuba Hubbard over Michael Carter. Joseph, do not do that. If you tuned in last week, I called that Chuba Hubbard was a very risky play, and he was. He was the trap of the week last week. He ended up scoring a touchdown late in the game, which completely saved his fantasy day. But he scored a touchdown, and he still didn't even score 10 points. We were right about Chuba Hubbard. The rest of the fantasy world was wrong. Most people had Chuba Hubbard projected for over 14 points last week. And I was on this live telling you to start Rashad Penny over him with a lot of confidence, and I was right. I was right about that one. And I think, again, with what we saw last week, and really what we've seen each of the last 4 games from the Panthers, Amir Abdullah is ahead of Chuba Hubbard on the depth chart and in playing time. He actually had less touches again, but played more snaps again than Chuba Hubbard. And again, I'm pretty nervous about the Panthers' offense overall. So, yeah, I definitely go Michael Carter. Is Hollywood playing? I think Hollywood is playing, but I don't think Lamar is playing. You really feeling that good about Jalen Hurts and Kyle Pitts? Yeah, so Kyle Pitts is I've been too high on Kyle Pitts all season. I've been too high on Kyle Pitts all season, really. And so I'm not feeling amazing about Kyle Pitts. But if you look, let me pull up my tight end rankings really quickly on the YouTube Live. Again, link to the YouTube Lives in the TikTok bio. I'm answering comments from both. But the YouTube Live, you can see my top 10 rankings every position, as well as my favorite picks against the spread, which can answer some of these questions for you, but it also will bring up some questions occasionally. And so this question's asking, am I really this high on Kyle Pitts and Jalen Hurts? So I have Jalen Hurts ranked as my number 4 QB. Yeah, I am that high on Jalen Hurts. I think he's top 5 option this week. He obviously didn't play in his last game because of an ankle injury, but he's had plenty of time to heal from that. He was actually close to playing in his last game. And he gets Washington. This is a good matchup for Jalen Hurts. It really is. Washington's defense has not been as good as we expected this season. And Jalen Hurts has been a top 12 fantasy football quarterback in all but 2 games. In all but 2 games, he's been a top 12 QB. So, yeah, I'm feeling good about Jalen Hurts. As for Kyle Pitts, I'm not feeling great about him. I'm not feeling amazing about him. But Travis Kelce already played. Darren Waller's out. So he still projects as a top 3 tight end for me. I wouldn't feel crazy starting Dallas Goedert, Mark Andrews, Zach Ertz, or Dawson Knox, or Mike Gesicki over him. I think all those guys you could start over Kyle Pitts, and it wouldn't be that crazy of a decision. It's not a good matchup for Kyle Pitts. He's going up against the 49ers, who I think ranked 3rd best against tight ends this season. Kyle Pitts has scored 1 touchdown this year. But yeah, I'm not feeling great about any tight ends really after the top 2. I won't be surprised if any of the tight ends on this list score less than 7 points, other than the top 2 guys. So I guess it's more of a tight end thing than a Kyle Pitts thing. That's why he's ranked so high. He probably should be a couple notches lower, though. Michael Carter or Antonio Gibson? Yeah, if it's a PPR league, I'm pretty sure J.D. McKissic was ruled out again. Let me pull this up really quickly to double check that. He's questionable. J.D. McKissic is questionable. No, he didn't practice Saturday. He's dealing with a neck injury. Assuming J.D. McKissic doesn't play, which it feels like that's where things are trending for him right now, I'd go Antonio Gibson over Michael Carter. And I think I have Antonio Gibson, in my top 10. I do. Michael Carter's not in the top 10. He's in the top 20. He's not in the top 10 for me. Lamar or Tua. Yeah, Lamar's not playing. And if he does play, I don't have any faith that he's going to play well. So this is the one week I get to tell you to bench Lamar. I don't think I've ever said that on this stream. But yeah, you should bench Lamar this week because he's just not healthy. And Tua is a good play. He really is for a lot of different reasons. He has a really safe floor. Start Terry. Yeah, I feel like you got to start Terry. I feel like Terry McLaurin kind of has to be started. Hurts or Hill? Yeah, I'm definitely starting Jalen Hurts over Taysom Hill. I have Jalen Hurts ranked as my number 4 quarterback this week. Taysom Hill's not even in the top 10. I don't even think Taysom Hill's in the top 15. Again, this is not a good matchup for Taysom Hill. Tread very carefully with Taysom Hill this week. And don't get me wrong, he's got the rushing floor. He could still have a reasonable fantasy day, but this is not a good matchup for him. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense is built to stop the run, and it struggles against the pass. But that's fine against the Saints, who really can't throw the ball. Like, they have one of the worst, if not the worst, passing offenses in the league right now. And they're coming off a game against the Jets where they were able to run the ball the entire game. I think they were leading by multiple scores in that game, or at least one touchdown in that game early in the first quarter. So yeah, I'm nervous. I'm nervous for Taysom Hill. This defense is built to stop guys like Taysom Hill, who can't throw. A lot of quarterbacks have done well against the Bucs. Plus, there's no Sean Payton in this game, who's probably the most important person on the sidelines for the Saints. Outside of Alvin Kamara this season, it's probably Sean Payton. Like, he's the second most important person on the team. He's not going to be at the game because of COVID. He's actually caught it twice now. Hopefully he's okay and gets back soon. But I'm not feeling good about Taysom Hill at all. I'm not. I feel like this is a very dangerous matchup for him. There is upside because I think this could end up being a high-scoring game. Like, the Bucs are going to score a lot of points against the Saints because the Saints defense is really similar to the Bucs defense. The Saints defense is a top 5 run defense, but a bottom 10 pass defense, very similar to the Bucs. Except the Bucs offense is built for defenses like that. Like, the Bucs are going to put up so many points in this game. Hey, Sam, do I start Ayuk at the bazooka or wait and see if Henderson is out and start Michelle? No, I'd start Ayuk over Michelle. I'd start Ayuk over Michelle because I think even if Henderson is out, this is still like a relatively close decision. Like, there's definitely still a chance, even if Henderson is out, there's still a chance Ayuk outscores Michelle. But I don't think Henderson's going to be out. Like, to me, it feels more likely that he plays than that he doesn't play. Let's pull up his latest news too. But what I can remember of the last report is that he was questionable, kind of / probable. Yeah, he's been activated from the COVID list. Yeah, I think he's going to play. I think he's going to play. I would be playing Ayuk. I downloaded your app and ranked it 5 stars. Thanks, man. Appreciate that a lot. Seriously. Or Devontae Parker. Marquise Brown or Devontae Parker. Yeah, you got to go Parker. With Tyler Huntley starting, it's got to be Devontae Parker. Why would he not play? Yeah, so he was on the COVID list, and then he's also been out with an injury for a little while. Right? Was he out with – I forget between how many people have COVID. I feel like I'm mixing together a lot of different injury reports. So he had a quad injury back in week 13. But then he was out. He was out because of COVID. Yeah, and he's been activated from that. So, yeah, I think he's playing. I don't think there's even a question that he's not playing. But that's why he wouldn't play, because he was on the COVID list. Hey, Sam. Been here for 50 minutes. Thanks for tuning in, man. Yeah, we've been live for just about an hour, man. The time's flying. The time is flying. We got a couple hours till kickoff. DJ Moore or AJ Green in a half PPR league. AJ Green, the corpse of AJ Green, came back to life last week. AJ Green came back to life. But I still feel like he'd go DJ Moore. I still feel like you kind of have to go with DJ Moore. It's a good matchup for AJ Green against the Lions. He had 17 points last week. First 100-yard game of the season, or second 100-yard game of the season. He did it against the Jags back in week 3. He did it against the Rams last week. But DJ Moore's been very consistent for us, and he still has a really high ceiling too. I think he's dealing with an injury himself, but it sounds like he's going to play. DJ Moore has at least 14 points 3 straight weeks. He's playing 90% of the snaps 3 straight weeks. He's seen at least 7 targets now in every single game this season. I feel like you got to go DJ Moore. Hey, Sam, how you been? I've been pretty good, man. I've been pretty good. I was in LA. I've never been out west before. First time ever to go into Cali. I was there for 2 days, and I went to SoFi Stadium. I went to the Chargers-Chiefs game on Thursday night. Absolutely wild game. Absolutely wild stadium. Travis Kelce paid for the trip with his with his prop. So shout out to Travis Kelce for paying for my trip to LA. Who am I starting? Dak or Taysom? Knox or Goddard? I'm definitely starting Dak over Taysom. Again, I'm nervous about Taysom Hill. I think Taysom Hill's floor is just terrifyingly low this week. I still think he's a high ceiling in a game that there could be a lot of points, but I'm definitely starting Dak over Taysom. And then Knox versus Goddard. I pulled my top 10 tight ends. I think that I have them both really close. We were in on the Dawson Knox props last week, by the way. Both of those hit. He scored a TD and he went over 40 yards. We had both those in the WalterPicks app. But yeah, I have Goddard ahead of Knox. I have Goddard ahead of Knox. Goddard has kind of established himself as the number 1 or number 2 passing target in the Eagles offense in a game that I think is shaping up pretty well for them to pass. His last game, Dallas Goedert had 28 points, 105 yards, 6 catches, 2 touchdowns. I think you go Goddard. I'm pretty sure it's a better matchup for Goddard as well. It's definitely close, though. Hey, Sam, do I start Wilson, Penny, or Dillon? These are all really close. Personally, I would be starting Wilson. Wilson and Penny over Dillon is very close. Can you put up the picks against the spread? Yeah, let me pull this up. Here's the picks against the spread. When Android is here. Android is here. The link to Android is in the TikTok bio. It's in the YouTube description too if you're watching live on YouTube. Android's here. It's the beta version of the WalterPicks app for Android. It's here. This is not a drill. This is not a drill. And we made the start sit tool free, basically, for the entire fantasy football playoff. So completely free. Download the WalterPicks app. It's going to help you dominate the rest of the season for your fantasy leagues. And if you do any of the premium subs, you get a completely free 7-day trial. But yeah, I'm not starting Taysom Hill over Dak Prescott. I'm not starting Taysom Hill over Justin Fields. I'm not starting Taysom Hill over Tua. I'm not starting Taysom Hill over Russell Wilson. I'm not starting Taysom Hill over Aaron Rodgers. I'm not starting Taysom Hill over Matthew Stafford. I'm not doing any of that. Kittle or Andrews. Do not bench George Kittle. Do not bench George Kittle. What do I do with Lockett? I think you bench Lockett. With the information we have now, I think you bench Lockett. Sam, what's up, man? Another football Sunday. Appreciate all your knowledge this year and the great app. Thanks, man. Joey, I appreciate that. One question. Foreman or Freeman today? Full PPR. Also, what about Penny? Yeah, I'm nervous about Penny. I think Rashad Penny, we were all in on him last week. I had him in almost all my DraftKings lineups. I started him in a couple season-long leagues. He actually got me into the playoffs in one league because he was against the Texans. That's why we liked Rashad Penny. That was a part of it. The Texans have allowed the most rushing yards per game to running backs this season. Not a single team has been worse than them. That's not who Rashad Penny gets this week. He's going to be up against a Washington team. Or not Washington, that's the Eagles. He's going to be up against a Rams team that is a lot better against the run than the Texans. So I'm nervous about it. I still think he has a ceiling, and I think you can start him. He's going to be the starting running back for the Seahawks. He's earned that role very clearly. But I'm nervous that he's a trap this week compared to last week. But for Foreman versus Freeman, that one's close. I personally would be going Foreman. I mean, Foreman's not in a bad spot this week either. The Steelers' defense has been pretty underwhelming this season. And we just saw them get destroyed by Dalvin Cook on national television. And really over the last month, there hasn't been very many worse run defenses than the Steelers. They've been one of the worst run defenses in the league over this span. Like the last 5 games, they're just getting demolished on the ground. So I think I like Foreman a little bit more than Freeman. I'm nervous about really the whole Ravens offense. Like the only guy I think you can start with a lot of confidence for the Ravens is Mark Andrews, just because tight ends are so bad that like if you have Mark Andrews, you kind of have to start him. But yeah, Dalvin Cook, 205 rushing yards last week. In week 13, Devontae Freeman had 52 yards and a TD. In week 12, Joe Mixon, 165 yards, 2 touchdowns. In week 11, Austin Eckler, 2 touchdowns, 50 yards, and over 100 total yards. So over their last, 4 games, they've allowed 7 touchdowns. Eckler had 2 rushing touchdowns and 2 receiving touchdowns against them. So we're up to 9 total touchdowns allowed by the Steelers in the last 4 games, just to running backs. And they've allowed at least 90 yards to 4 straight running backs, 2 of which they allowed over 160 yards. So yeah, they've been horrible against running backs the last month. It's got to be Foreman, man. It's got to be Foreman. Rashad Penny or Michael Gallup in the flex. Yeah, I don't feel great about Gallup anymore. With Amari Cooper back, let me pull up Gallup stats from last week. Gallup's floor is really low again. It's really low. Like he's really comparable to like a guy like Marquez Valdes-Scantling. He's better than Scantling. He's more talented than Scantling. But his role in the offense isn't that much different. He still did have 9 targets last week. And he still played over 85% of the snaps last week. So he's now had 3 straight games with at least 11 points. Who was the other person in this question again? Rashad Penny. Yeah, it's close. This one's really close. If it's a PPR league, I think it's even closer. If it's not a PPR league, I think you got to lean the running back. But honestly, I think you go Rashad Penny over Michael Gallup. I would go Penny over Gallup. I do think, too, Amari Cooper's role is only going to grow from what it's been. Michael Carter this week. Yeah, you should start Michael Carter this week. So I got my picks against the spread showing right now. And I have 2 locks this week. I hit the lock last week, by the way. Cowboys destroyed Washington. The Washington almost came back and backdoor covered in that game. Didn't end up happening. But my 2 locks are actually both underdogs today. I think the Titans beat the Steelers. And I think the Bengals beat the Broncos. Both those teams are underdogs. The Bengals are 3-point underdogs against the Broncos. What makes the Broncos 3 points better than the Bengals? Seriously, what makes the Broncos 3 points better than the Bengals? Like, I don't really understand that one. I think the Bengals are better than the Broncos. Obviously, the Broncos have home field advantage. So I guess they're saying this is a pick 'em, but the Broncos have home field advantage. I think the Bengals beat the Broncos in this game. And again, I think the Titans also win this week against the Steelers. The Titans are really built to play a team like the Steelers, who, again, have been really bad against running backs. And somehow they almost came back in their last game against the Vikings. But the beginning of that game, I think, showed you a lot of the true colors of this team. Just like last night, I think showed you some true colors about the Patriots. And their lack of ability to stop the run has been a problem for them this season. In the power rankings that I'm looking at right here, based on EPA per play, so kind of like an analytical power ranking, the Bengals are 2 spots ahead of the Broncos. I think the Bengals are better than the Broncos. Good morning, Sam. How are you? I'm doing well, man. Do I start Stephon Diggs or T. Higgins? Yeah, do not bench Stephon Diggs. Do not bench Stephon Diggs. T. Higgins has been dominating. 3 straight games over 100 yards for T. Higgins. I think that streak ends today, though. I think that streak for him ends today in what is a difficult matchup for him. It is a tough matchup for him. You got to start Stephon Diggs, who's also got a tough matchup, but yeah, you got to start Stephon Diggs. Cardinals defense or Dolphins defense? Yeah, I would go Cardinals. I would go Cardinals against the Lions. The Dolphins defense is good too. But the Cardinals defense is better than the Dolphins defense, like just in a vacuum, regardless of the matchup. So that's why I would go with the Cardinals. AJ Green or Penny? Yeah, I'd go Penny over AJ Green. That one's close for sure. Craig Reynolds or Jeff Wilson? Yeah, we're not starting Craig Reynolds. You really can't trust any of the Lions' backfield. You can't. We're not starting Craig Reynolds. Absolutely not. You're not risking the fantasy football playoffs on Craig Reynolds. We just can't do it. You just can't do that. Like, it's just not a good move. Undrafted rookie. Not a rookie, but he was undrafted. We've never heard of him. Like, if you had heard of Craig Reynolds before last week, I'm impressed. Very impressed. Because I'm staring at depth charts all week, and I've literally never heard of Craig Reynolds before last week, where he played a little under half the snaps for the Lions. He had 13 total touches. He turned that into 99 yards. He played well. 0 touchdowns. Because he's on the Lions, you can't bank on a touchdown for any of the Lions players. It lowers their ceiling and floor dramatically. Like, I will not be surprised, guys, if week 14 of the NFL season is the best game of Craig Reynolds' career. That just won't be that surprising. It just won't. Don't start Craig Reynolds this week, please. Don't do it. I hope I convinced you. Carter or Ayuk? Yeah, this one's super close. And if it's a PPR league, I think I would lean Ayuk over Carter. I do like Carter a lot, though, and I would argue Carter's floor is higher because he's a running back. Carter or Odell? Yeah, I'd be playing Carter. You've been hyping Carter. Would you start Miles Sanders over Carter? No. I wouldn't start Miles Sanders over Carter. I have been hyping Carter because Carter's good, guys. Michael Carter's good. Michael Carter has a pretty exciting ceiling in PPR leagues. We've seen multiple games where Michael Carter had 8 catches, 9 catches. We've seen a game with him where he finished with 8 catches. We've seen a game where he finished with 9 catches. Both those games, he ended up going over 100 total yards, one of which he scored a touchdown. And in both those games, he was a top 15 running back. One of those weeks, he was the number 1 overall running back back in week 8 against the Bengals, 172 yards, 9 catches, and a touchdown. That's a good ceiling. The fact that he's a path to being a top 10 running back is good. That's good for Michael Carter. But the receiving also raises his floor. Like, he really has not gone under 10 points very much this season in his games where he's played the whole game. So, yeah, I like Michael Carter this week. Hey, Sam. Tennessee D versus Pittsburgh? Yeah, I don't hate it. Don't hate it at all. My lock, one of my 2 locks of the week is the Titans against the Steelers. They're 1-point underdogs in that game. I think the Titans beat the Steelers. Penny or Carter? Yeah, I like Carter more than Penny. Pretty significantly more, honestly. Hey, Sam, Patterson or Jamar Chase at flex? It's so tough to be benching both those guys. It's really tough to be benching both those guys. It's, I think, even tougher to bench Cordell Patterson than it is to bench Jamar Chase. Cordell Patterson, if you're in the fantasy playoffs and you have Cordell Patterson, there's a good chance Cordell Patterson helped you get to the playoffs. He doesn't have a great matchup against the 49ers today. Jamar Chase is coming off another big game where he scored twice. 25 points, 2 TDs for Jamar Chase in his last game. Really his first big game in a while. Like there was a pretty clear front runner for Rookie of the Year in the first month and a half of the season, and it was Jamar Chase. But the last month and a half has not been as good for him. It was his first game over 60 yards since week 7. So he went almost half the season with consecutive games under 60 yards. And Mac Jones, with the loss last night, like, I still think it's probably going to end up being Mac Jones Rookie of the Year because it usually goes to a QB. But Jamar Chase could make it interesting down the stretch here. Yeah, I think I would go Cordero though. I think I would go Cordero over Jamar. It's certainly close. Cordero Patterson, I would argue, has the safer floor, given how many carries he gets. But Jamar Chase, I would argue, has the higher ceiling, just given his role in the offense and the number of times he scored over 20 points. All right, let's get back to some of the YouTube comments and the TikTok comments here. We are live on TikTok and YouTube, by the way. If you come to the YouTube live, link is in the TikTok bio. You can see my top 10 rankings for every single position. Let me pull up my quarterbacks really quick. Yo, Sam, thoughts on Chase Edmonds? Who would you start him over? Yeah, I think Chase Edmonds is a reasonable option in PPR leagues. I think he's averaging close to 5 catches a game. I don't think his ceiling's that high because James Conner is still going to be there to steal touchdowns. So Chase Edmonds doesn't have that high of a touchdown ceiling. So some guys that would start him over, Rashad Penny might be on the list. Rashad Penny, I think, is close. Like, I think that's the line. I would definitely start him over any of the Lions running backs. I think him versus A.J. Dillon in a PPR league is really close. I think it's close. I would start him over James Conner, though. I would start him over James Conner. I think I told someone that earlier this stream. In a PPR league, well, James Conner's got the touchdown ceiling, but again, when Chase Edmonds plays, James Conner's averaging under 1 catch a game. So I think the floor and ceiling is lowered for James Conner too. So yeah, those are some thoughts on Chase Edmonds. We got someone on the YouTube live saying, "Hey Sam, been here for 30 minutes. Thanks for tuning in, man." Crazy game last night. It was just a horrible game, honestly, a really bad game for the vast majority of the game for the Pats. It was tough to watch. The worst part of the game, though, for me was them kicking a field goal 2 yards away from the end zone. There's been so many instances of this season for the Pats. Like, give the offense a chance to win the game. Just give them a chance. They might not win, but at least you had a chance to win. Instead, they kick the field goal, and I think they ended up getting the ball back down 2 scores with like 2 minutes, 10 seconds left or something. And they kicked the field goal with like 5 minutes left. Just horrible. That really bothered me. And it's really not the first time that's happened. All right, back to the fantasy question. I'm sorry. You got me going about the game last night. I'm wondering who you choose between Gage, Van Jeff, and AJ Green. Yeah, these are all 3 guys are so close. I would argue Van Jefferson's the worst one. I know Van Jefferson's had a couple back-to-back good games, but it feels like his role and Odell Beckham's role are really similar, which gets me nervous a little bit about Van Jefferson. He has had good games back-to-back. He's gone over 14 points 3 straight games now, but he's seen his volume start to decrease a little. He only saw 3 targets last game, and he only ran 27 routes, both of which were the worst in his last 7 or 8 games. So, yeah, that's why I think Van Jefferson's floor is really low. I think there's a chance we see donuts out of Van Jefferson, where I don't think that's very likely with these other 2 guys. And I think they offer similar ceilings. Like, all 3 of these guys to me have a very similar ceiling. Gage, I've been wrong about for multiple weeks in a row now. I've been wrong about him. He's had a way better floor than I thought he had. He's been at or right below 10 points in every single game of 4 straight games now, I think. He did have a stretch this season, though, with 2 donuts in the span of 3 weeks. He had 0 points twice in the span of 3 weeks earlier this season, which is why I've been so concerned about him for really the rest of the season. He had 0 points in Week 8 against the Panthers, despite playing over 60% of the snaps. He had 0 points in Week 10 against the Cowboys, despite playing over 60% of the snaps. He had a combined 3 targets in those games. But if you look at over just the last 4, he's been pretty consistent. He saw 6 targets against Stephon Gilmore last week. But honestly, I think I would go AJ Green, because I think AJ Green's the best combination of the floor and the ceiling. I think I would go AJ Green. I think it's between those 2 though, in my eyes. It is really close. Definitely a close one. Do I start Michael Carter or Devontae Parker since Waddle is out? Yeah, Teddy, I like Michael Carter, his floor, better than Devontae Parker's floor. I think both will do well. Hey, Sam, got any player props and a DFS lineup? Thank you. Yeah, Zach, man. I got both for you. I got both. First of all, let's talk about DraftKings. The DraftKings lineup for me today, there's actually, I think, $300 left over in this lineup. So if you wanted to tinker with it, you definitely could. This is a lineup designed for cash. This is designed for head-to-head contests, but I do think it could do well in tournaments as well. I'm going with Tua at quarterback. Tua's gone over 15 points in 75% of his games this season, and he's up against a Jets team that's allowed at least 15 points to 9 straight quarterbacks. 9 consecutive quarterbacks have scored at least 15 points against the Jets. So that's what Tua's floor is in this game, and his ceiling's in the 30s. So I like Tua at quarterback a lot, given his price on DraftKings, and I'm stacking him with Mike Gesicki, who, given the slate of tight ends, like after George Kittle, Gesicki has a chance to be a top 3 tight end this week. The Jets have been really bad against tight ends this season, and no Jalen Waddle out. A lot of people are rushing to Devontae Parker with no Jalen Waddle out, which I think makes sense. I think he's a good option. I think he's a better option because Waddle's out. But I think in a similar way, we can feel that way about Gesicki, who to me is locked in to like at least 7 targets today. I'd be pretty surprised if he didn't see at least 7. And so at his price, I think he's like 4,000 on DraftKings. I like his price a lot. He's almost outside the top 10 tight ends in terms of pricing. I think he's a top 5 tight end option. At running back, I'm buying into the James Robinson narrative. I do think I would not play James Robinson in a tournament because I think he's going to be in too many lineups. Given his risk reward, I think he's going to be in too many lineups this week because a lot of people are buying into this narrative. But I still like him in a head-to-head contest. I'm going with Jeff Wilson against the Falcons. They've been horrible against running backs this season. I'm nervous about Deebo Samuel a little bit, eating into Jeff Wilson's carries. But I still think Jeff Wilson can see 15-plus carries today against the bad Falcons defense. Deontay Johnson and Deebo Samuel. I'm playing Deebo and Jeff Wilson. I wouldn't do that if it was a tournament lineup because this is a head-to-head contest. I'm just feeling good about the 49ers rushing attack against the Falcons. And so I'm playing it safe. I'm just going to play Jeff Wilson and Deebo Samuel. Deebo Samuel, by the way, is arguably one of the safest players in all of fantasy. Like maybe just behind Cooper Kupp and Jonathan Taylor. You got Deebo Samuel this season, who has not had a single game under 10 points. Not a single time has he gone under 10 points. But his ceiling's in the 30s also. So he's perfect for tournaments and head-to-head contests alike. But I think in head-to-head, starting him and Jeff Wilson is a pretty strong, safe move. Gabriel Davis is the guy I'm paying down for to really pay up for some of these other guys. Ran around on 80% of the Josh Allen's dropbacks last week. The Bills don't really care about matchups in terms of their play calling. They're going to throw the ball. So it's not a great matchup for the Bills. And for their receivers, I think they're up against a top 5 defense in terms of how their secondary has done against receivers in fantasy. But Gabriel Davis could still easily go 50 yards. He could still easily score a touchdown, and he's priced near the minimum. And then at flex, I'm going with Amari Cooper. This is another one that I might tinker with a little bit. But Amari Cooper against the Giants. I just think Amari Cooper is going to be on very, very few rosters this week. Giants are not a secondary that scares me. We already saw Amari Cooper do okay against this defense once this season. That was back in week 5, where he had 6 targets, finished with 60 yards and a touchdown. And he's coming off a game where he played 92% of the snaps. It's the most he's played in quite some time. And he scored a touchdown in his last game as well. 7 targets in that one. I think he's getting another 7 targets today against a pretty lackluster defense. And then I'm going with the Jaguars defense just to stack them with James Robinson. And again, the Texans have been the best team to go up against as a defense. And I'm buying into the Urban Meyer narrative. That just has to improve the team this week. Do I start Aaron Jones this week? Yeah, Nathan, I feel like you have to start Aaron Jones. It's not going to be easy. He's not that easy to trust right now, but I think you got to trust him. Because the ceiling is still so high for Aaron Jones. Like Aaron Jones could still score 3 or 4 touchdowns in a game. He scored 2 touchdowns just last week. He had 5 carries last week, but he finished with over 20 points. I'm going to say that again in case you missed that. Aaron Jones had 5 carries last week. If you went into that game and you were told Aaron Jones is only going to have 5 carries, you probably would have benched Aaron Jones. But guess what? He finished with 21 points still. Because that's what Aaron Jones does, man. He scores touchdowns, and he still had 3 catches too. He still totaled 65 yards. So yeah, you got to start Aaron Jones. You just have to. His ceiling's too high. His touchdown ceiling's just too high. Chuba Hubbard or Jeff Wilson, yeah, bench Chuba Hubbard, man. You bench Chuba Hubbard. He's literally playing behind Amir Abdullah. He's played less than Amir Abdullah in 3 consecutive games now. That's the guy you're going to trust? Gronk or Gibson at flex. Aiden, I hate starting 2 tight ends, man. I hate it. I think you got to go Gibson. Hey, Sam, Gesicki or Knox? Yeah, we got asked this one earlier, too. I'm going with Gesicki over Knox. I think I have Gesicki ranked ahead of Knox. Yeah, I do. No, I don't. I have Gesicki ranked 1 spot behind Knox. It's close. Oh, Dawson Knox ranked number 7. Gesicki ranked number 8. We cashed in on Dawson Knox props last week. His touchdown and his receiving prop both hit on his touchdown play, which was exciting against the Bucs. This one's super close. I honestly think if this was my decision, though, I would go Gesicki over Knox. But it's absolutely close. It's absolutely close. And I would argue Knox has the higher ceiling and Gesicki has the safer floor. With Waddle out, again, I think Gesicki's seeing 7+ targets today. James Conner or Tony Pollard, yeah, you can't play Tony Pollard or Pollard. I don't know how to pronounce it. But you can't start him. You can't start him. The latest report about him is that he is hoping to play a dozen snaps today. You can't start someone who's going to play only a dozen snaps. That's not a dozen carries. It's not a dozen touches. That's snaps. Maybe he touches the ball in half those snaps. So we got 6 touches as like the median projection for Tony Pollard today. Like, no, you can't start him. You can't start him. And I'm nervous about Zeke today too. I think you kind of have to start him in most situations, but I'm nervous about him too. Like the fact that they're trying to rush back Tony Pollard and even in the game without him, last week, guys, was so telling for Zeke. It felt like the nail in the coffin for Zeke last week. I don't think he even had a particularly bad fantasy day. I can pull it up. But the amount that he played and the amount that he touched the ball when Tony Pollard wasn't able to play was very disappointing. And it was really telling about really just how bad Zeke's doing this season. He played 2/3 of the snaps, which wasn't that much different than how much he's been playing in the weeks prior. He's played between 60 and 67% of the snaps in 3 straight games. But he saw only 12 carries. He only had 12 carries. Last week, there was no Tony Pollard, and Zeke had 12 carries. In a game, the Cowboys were dominating. He did have 6 targets, but he only caught 1 of them. He finished with 60 yards, 0 touchdowns in a game that Tony Pollard did not play. If I'm you, I'm panicking about Zeke. I think it's time to hit the panic button on Ezekiel Elliott. And I certainly would not be starting Tony Pollard either. Hey, Sam, been here 30 minutes. Thanks for sticking around, man. Do I start Gaskin or Osborne at flex? Yeah, I think you go Gaskin. We just don't know for sure if Thielen's playing or not, too, which is big. So I would just go Gaskin. Yo, Sam, McLaurin, more reliable than Ayuk and Parker? No, I don't think he's more reliable than either guy this week. I don't think he's more reliable at all. I think he can have a good week, and I think you can start him in some situations, but I would not start him over Ayuk the Bazooka or Devontae Parker. And then Michael Carter, Javonte Williams, or Aaron Jones pick 2. Yeah, definitely Aaron Jones. Michael Carter versus Javonte Williams is also close, though. I know Javonte Williams has been balling, man. I'm not thrilled about it because I wanted Javonte Williams. I wanted Javonte Williams not to blow up at the end of the season, so that we could all draft Javonte Williams in like rounds 4 or 5 next season and just dominate our leagues. But that's not the case, guys. The cat is out of the bag with Javonte Williams. As expected, like we knew he was good. The talent has been there since he was drafted. I've been excited about Javonte Williams since I watched the video of the Denver Broncos staff comparing him to Ezekiel Elliott during the draft process. That is what the Broncos think of Javonte Williams, and that's how ultimately I think they're going to end up using him. But Melvin Gordon's still around. But guys, Javonte's had over 20 points in 3 straight games. He's had 4 touchdowns in his last 3 games. He scored at least once in all 3 of them. He's had at least 14 carries in all 3 of those games. He's been a top 10 running back in 3 consecutive weeks. It's tough to bench a guy that's been a top 10 running back in 3 consecutive weeks. The Broncos are up against the Bengals this week. The Bengals' run defense has been, I believe, pretty good this season. Pull this up really quickly. They've actually been a little bit bad. They've allowed the 12th most points to running backs this season. Carter versus Javonte Williams is close. It's close. I think you kind of have to go Javonte Williams, though. After reading all those stats and how good he's been, I know Melvin Gordon didn't play in one of those games, but he did play in 2 of them. I think you go Javonte. How do you feel about DJ Moore if he plays? I think he is going to play, and I think he's a solid wide receiver, too, if he plays. I think he is. RB-less Sam. Yeah, let me pull this up. Hey, Sam, Higgins or Jacob for flex? Love the app, by the way. Thanks, man. Yeah, guys, if you haven't checked out the WalterPicks app yet, you got to check it out. Our Start Sit tool is also basically free for the entire fantasy playoffs. So you get a little bit more free access to the app than usual. It's also completely free to download. Also, any of the premium subs come with a completely free 7-day trial. So pretty low risk. Download the app. Let me know what you think. Higgins versus Jacob. Yeah, I think I would go Higgins. I think I would go Higgins over Jacobs this week. It's definitely close. The Browns, I think, have been much better against the run than against the pass this season as well. That's who Josh Jacobs is up against. Yeah, the Browns have allowed the 10th fewest points to running backs this season. The 10th fewest points to running backs this season. Higgins has 3 straight games over 100 yards, too. He's really starting to heat up. DFS lineup. Yeah, if you come to the YouTube Live, link to the YouTube Live, you're watching live on TikTok, is in the TikTok bio. You can see my top 10 rankings for every single position if you come to the YouTube Live, but also my DraftKings lineup also on the screen of the YouTube Live right now. Gronk or Gesicki? It's got to be Gronk. You got to start Gronk. 100%. Jerry Jeudy or Zeke standard league? Yeah, this is what it's like when we've hit the panic button on Zeke, and now we're thinking about starting Jerry Jeudy over Ezekiel Elliott. I mean, just brutal. But I think you go Zeke there. Like, I think you can panic about Zeke, but still start him over Jerry Jeudy. Taysom or Dak? I'm not starting Taysom. This week. This could end up being a mistake. It could. That game could be high scoring. But the Bucs are not a good matchup for Taysom Hill and the Saints. They're just not. The Buccaneers are a very good run defense and a very bad pass defense. Very similar to the Saints defense. But the offenses for the Saints and the Bucs couldn't be more different. The Bucs offense, one of the most pass-heavy, aggressive offenses down the field, throwing the ball. Perfect when playing a defense like the Saints. The Saints offense literally can't throw the ball. But they are going to run a lot because their quarterback is essentially a running back. And that's good for fantasy. We want quarterbacks that run in fantasy. That's why Taysom Hill still has an intriguing ceiling to me. But then again, in the context against this defense is built to stop a guy like Taysom Hill. I really feel that way. And also, the Saints are without their head coach in this game, who's arguably the most important person to the Saints this season is Sean Payton. With how much they've succeeded this season, with the little talent that they have, a lot of that has to be credited to Sean Payton. So I'm nervous for Taysom Hill, and I'd definitely be playing Dak over him. Freeman or DJ Moore at flex? Yeah, I'm pretty confident DJ Moore is going to play, and since he's playing, I think you got to start him. Kyler Murray or Stafford? Yeah, don't pitch Kyler. Kyler's my number 1 QB this week. Hurts or Fields? I got Hurts ranked as a top 5 QB too. I actually have Justin Fields in my top 10 also. If you come to the YouTube Live, link is in the TikTok bio. You can see my top 10 rankings, every position. I got both those guys in my top 10. I got Hurts, though, at number 4. Guys, Jalen Hurts has finished as a top 12 fantasy football quarterback every single week except for twice. All right, I'm seeing way too many Craig Reynolds questions. in the TikTok Live. TikTok Live people. Don't start Craig Reynolds. Don't start him. He had 99 yards last week. He played less than half the snaps. I just won't be surprised if that's Craig Reynolds' best career game. And I think you're lying if you're saying that you knew who Craig Reynolds was before last week. And there was a reason for that. He was undrafted. He's never done anything in the NFL. And he's on the Lions. And even when he had 99 yards last week, he still didn't even have 12 fantasy points because he didn't score a touchdown. And because he's on the Lions, he's probably not going to score a touchdown this week either. I think you're playing with fire if you're starting Craig Reynolds in the fantasy playoffs. I would play Rashad Penny over him. I would probably play Gabriel Davis over him. Miles Sanders or Michael Carter is a close one. I personally like Michael Carter in a PPR league a little bit more than Miles Sanders. What's up, Sam? Thanks for the info, my man. How do you feel about DJ Moore or Odell Beckham? Yeah, that one's close. It's close. I honestly think Odell is probably a little bit better than DJ Moore. But given the injury for DJ Moore, I think if there was no injury for DJ Moore, I wouldn't think that. Let me read the latest report about DJ Moore because we've gotten a lot of DJ Moore questions. Ian Rappaport reporting DJ Moore hamstring is expected to play in Week 15 against the Bills. He exited Week 14 with a hamstring issue, but he was able to play later in that game. And he finished that game with 84 yards, 6 catches, 10 targets. DJ Moore has at least 7 targets now in every single game this season. I think he's a solid wide receiver too. Odell has a higher ceiling, Moore has the safer floor. That's the bottom line for me. Been here for over an hour. Pick one. Devontae Smith, Dawson Knox, Jeff Wilson, or Rashad Penny. Ryan, this one's tough. I'm not going to lie, this one's not easy. But we're going to rule out Dawson Knox immediately because fantasy football is hard enough as it is. We don't need to start 2 tight ends. We don't need to start 2 tight ends. So don't start 2 tight ends. I know Dawson Knox in tight end world is pretty good, right? Dawson Knox to me is a top 10 tight end. But when you start going into the world of flex options, Dawson Knox should not be in the conversation because his floor is literally 4 points. Like his floor is so low. Just like all tight ends because they play tight end and they almost never see a game with 10 plus targets or 10 plus touches. So yeah, we're not starting Dawson Knox. We're not starting Dawson Knox over Devontae Smith or Jeff Wilson or Rashad Penny. We can start Dawson Knox over lots of tight ends, though. Devontae Smith, I want to start Devontae Smith this week. I do. I really want to start. I think this is the first Devontae Smith question we've got. And it's because people are pretty down on Devontae Smith. He hasn't done well in the last month. He just hasn't seen very much volume in the last month. The Eagles have been one of the most run-heavy teams in the league, if not the most run-heavy team in the league over the last month. And it's led to less volume for Devontae Smith. He has 4 targets last week, 4 targets the week before that. Only 2 catches in both those games. He's gone under 25 yards in 2 straight games. And it's not like these games were against good secondaries. The Giants and the Jets aren't the scariest secondaries in the world. But they are bad teams, and the Eagles were able to just run all over them. But I think he has a really exciting ceiling against Washington. I think the fact that he plays Washington twice in the fantasy playoffs was part of the reason I was in on Devontae Smith this season. And I think he has an exciting ceiling this week. I think he could easily go over 20 points. I honestly think there's a chance we see Devontae Smith's best career game sometime in the next 3 weeks. So I think the floor is low on a team that really wants to run the ball, but I would argue Devontae Smith's ceiling is higher than Jeff Wilson's and it's higher than Rashad Penny's. So if you're going for the ceiling, I think the answer here is Devontae Smith. But if you're going for the floor, then it's definitely Jeff Wilson or Rashad Penny. Like they're running backs. They're locked into at least 10 carries, both of them. I think I like Jeff Wilson a little bit more than Rashad Penny this week, though. There's slight differences between the two. But Jeff Wilson's going to be splitting some of the backfield with Deebo Samuel, which I think lowers his chances at a touchdown. And it really, Jeff Wilson's probably going to get 0 catches. Rashad Penny's probably not going to have very many catches either. But Alex Collins is out. Sounds like Adrian Peterson might play. But Rashad Penny has a little bit more of the backfield to himself, in my opinion, than Jeff Wilson. But Jeff Wilson is the better matchup. The Falcons have been a bottom 10 defense against running backs. The Rams have not been a bottom 10 defense against running backs. So yeah, personally, if I were to rank these guys in order of how I would start them, I would say Jeff Wilson number 1, Devontae Smith number 2, Rashad Penny number 3, Dawson Knox number 4. But again, if you're shooting for the ceiling, I think Devontae Smith has a higher ceiling than Jeff Wilson. I hope that makes sense. I got to give a best ball update, by the way. I drafted 500 best ball teams before this season. Yeah, I know, an embarrassing high amount. I have a problem in the offseason. I can't stop doing best ball drafts. But my teams have done well. Over, I think it was like 18%. It might have been 16%. Might have been 16% of them advanced to the next round. And there's 12 teams in each of these best ball leagues. So the expected win rate's 8%, 8.3%. So it was pretty good. I got Devontae Smith on a lot of those teams, so I'm hoping he has a good playoffs. I'm still in contention for the $1 million prize on Underdog. So I'll give more updates on that, I'm sure. I'm going to post a video about that on TikTok this weekend. What up, Sam? Ayuk or Parker, full PPR. Thanks, man. What's going on, Peyton? Thanks for tuning in, man. Thanks, all of you, for tuning in, seriously. I try to say this once per stream at least. I think time is the most valuable thing we have. So I do really appreciate you guys spending some time on stream this morning. If you haven't yet, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Really does help me out. But yeah, Ayuk versus Parker is close. I personally like Ayuk at the bazooka more than Devontae Parker. He has a better matchup against the Falcons. But I would argue Devontae Parker's floor is better. Devontae Parker really hasn't had a bad game this season in the games that he's played. And with no Jalen Waddle, you can just feel even better about his floor. It's not like the Jets are a very scary defense. Devontae Parker's worst game this season. Let's look at his worst game. It's a pretty good way to see someone's floor. Just go look at their worst game. Devontae Parker's worst game came in week 3. And in that game, he still had 7 targets. And he still finished with 8 points. I think that's his floor today. 7 targets, 4 catches, 8 points, 40 yards. Like, that's his floor. That's Devontae Parker's floor. I would argue Ayuk, the bazooka's floor, is a little bit lower, especially if the 49ers can really lean on the run, which I think is very possible against the Falcons. I think they're like really big favorites against the Falcons. I actually picked the Falcons in that game. Pull up my picks against the spread on the YouTube live because it was more points than I expected. The Falcons, they're 9-point underdogs against the 49ers. That's not good for Brandon Ayuk. So yeah, but I still think Ayuk has the higher ceiling. So I would argue to start Ayuk. But I don't think you're crazy for starting Devontae Parker over Ayuk, if that's what you end up deciding. AJ Green or Foreman or Barkley. Yeah, it's got to be Barkley. You got to start Barkley. I think you got to start Barkley. Like, I could see the argument for starting AJ Green and Foreman over Barkley. I could. I understand it. I understand it. And Foreman has a very good matchup. We went through the numbers earlier, but the Steelers' run defense is arguably the worst run defense in the league right now, and we all saw it on national television. Dalvin Cook just ran over 200 yards against the Steelers without one of his shoulders. The Steelers have allowed an astronomical amount of fantasy points to running backs over the last month. No defense has been worse over the last month against running backs. So that's good news for Deontay Foreman. But I still think you start Saquon. I think you have to start Saquon. I think it's too big of a downside to be benching Saquon in the fantasy playoffs at this point. If you made it this far with Saquon, I think you got to be playing him. He's only really started to look better in each week. I do think he picked up a small injury, though. Let me pull this up. Read the latest on Saquon's injury, because that's the only thing that could talk me out of Saquon. His snap share dipped last week, but he also saw the most carries he's seen since week 3, and he had 95 total yards against the Chargers and a touchdown. 18.5 points. It was his best game since week 4. And the latest on his injury, Saquon Barkley ankle, not on the injury report. He was not given an injury designation for week 15 against the Cowboys. Barkley sat out Wednesday. He did not practice in full at all this week. But I think it was just more maintenance for Saquon. I think you have to start Saquon. It's not a great matchup. You got to start Saquon Barkley. Hey, Sam, been here for about an hour. Thanks for tuning in, man. We got a whole nother hour to go. Who did I start at my flex? Jeff Wilson, Ayuk, Melvin Gordon, Chase Edmonds, or Michael Carter. Yeah, a lot of good options here. I think this one really does come down to the first 2 guys and Michael Carter. I wouldn't start Melvin Gordon or Chase Edmonds over those other 3. Jeff Wilson versus Ayuk is super interesting. Obviously, they're on the same team. They both have good matchups. The Falcons haven't been good against receivers or running backs, but they've been worse against the run than they have against the pass. So that makes me want to say Jeff Wilson over Ayuk, But if it's a PPR league, which it is, Jeff Wilson's not going to get a single catch in this game, most likely. Like the backfield targets are going to go to Deebo Samuel. I'm pretty sure Jeff Wilson has more games with 0 catches than he does with 1. I can pull up those numbers really quickly. So because it's a PPR league, I think we can narrow it down. Yeah, he has 0 games with more than 1 catch. Back-to-back games with 0 catches. So I think it's between Ayuk and Michael Carter. And personally, I think it's Carter. I think it's Carter over Ayuk. I like Carter this week. I think his ceiling's high. We've seen multiple games where Carter has 8 catches. That's even more than Ayuk could get. Like, Michael Carter could have a better receiving day than Ayuk, but he's also going to get carries. Saquon or Ayuk at flex, yeah, you can't bench Saquon. You just can't bench him. You can't bench him. He was your first pick or your second pick if you were lucky. You can't bench Saquon. And I know that like that thinking at this point of the year does not matter. It does not matter when you picked your guys at this point. But you're not benching Saquon in the fantasy playoffs. He's fully healthy. He's not in the injury report. He just had his best game since week 4. He had 95 yards and a touchdown last week. Sam, can you say Jaquez is terrible LM? He vetoed 3 trades because he thought it was unfair. Yeah, man, you got to just stop being in leagues where you can veto things. You got to stop being in leagues where you can veto. The veto should not be a thing. The only reason to ever overturn a trade in fantasy is if there was collusion or cheating. That's the only reason that you can ever reverse a trade, in my mind. It's the only reason. And if you're in a league where you think unfair trades are happening, then, well, why didn't you try to make a trade with that person? Or just go get in a different league with people that aren't going to make horrible trades. It's not that hard. Hope you've had a great morning. I have, man. Thanks for asking. I'm a little disappointed about the Pats game last night still, but I also feel like I have restored to my kind of homeostasis of being a Pats fan, where I get to be really pessimistic as a Pats fan. I think I'm one of the most pessimistic Pats fans that are out there. And so now when they lose, I just kind of feel validated. I feel validated now when the Pats lose. It's horrible. In a head-to-head matchup, who should I be thinking about starting at QB with Lamar out? Yeah, go get Tua. I think Tua is the number 1 guy to go get if he's available. I have him ranked pretty high this week. I think he's the number 8 QB for me this week. I think Tua his floor is 15 points. He's gone over 15 points in 75% of his games. The Jets have allowed at least 15 points in 9 straight games to opposing quarterbacks. That's nine consecutive games. The Jets have allowed at least 15 points. And Tua is really he's just not getting enough credit. I read off these stats earlier in the stream, but Tua is top three in each of the following categories this season. True completion percentage, which is just completion percentage when you take away throwaways and dropped passes. He's top 3 in that metric. He's top 3 in play action completion percentage. He's top 3 in red zone completion percentage. He's top 3 in deep ball completion percentage. So I think Tua also has a really encouraging ceiling. And I also just don't think he's gotten enough credit this year. If you can't get Tua, I would go look for Justin Fields. Josh Allen or Taysom Hill? Yeah, you're not playing Taysom Hill over Josh Allen. I've been a subscriber to the app since last year. Everyone go sub to the app. Zach, that's what I'm talking about, man. That's what I'm talking about. Zach, we're actually going to have a Discord channel for the for the app subscribers very soon. So that's to look forward to. The YouTube subscribers will be able to be in there as well. Amari or Parker, also is Hollywood Brown playing. Amari Cooper versus Devontae Parker is extremely close. It's extremely close. I would argue, I think I've said this with Devontae Parker a lot today, that Devontae Parker has the safer floor. Again, I think his floor is really safe. Like, I think he sees at least 7 targets. I would be pretty surprised if he goes under 8 points. His worst game this season, he finished with 8 points. To me, that is his floor. But I'd argue Amari Cooper's ceiling is way higher, way higher than Devontae Parker's. So if you're going for the ceiling, you go with Amari Cooper. If you're going for the floor, you go with Devontae Parker. Personally, I'm almost always going for the ceiling, so I'm going with Amari Cooper over Devontae Parker. But if you're trying to just lock in some points, like for example, I think it depends given your matchup. Like for example, if you already had Jonathan Taylor play or Travis Kelce play or Tyreek Hill play, and you're up by a lot, like then, yeah, I would just go with Devontae Parker, lock in the minimum 8 points. But if I'm going up against those guys, then I'd definitely be playing Amari Cooper because I need to try to catch up. Thanks for subscribing to the app, by the way, though. Really, it's the number one way you could possibly support me. Carter, the free prop pick of the day. Speaking of Amari Cooper. This prop is not a lock, but it's simply set too low. It's just simply set too low. This is the lowest Amari Cooper's prop has been set since the start of the season. It has not been lower than this once. But he played 92% of the snaps last week. He's back to full health. He saw 7 targets. And he's up against the Giants team that he already put up 60 yards against earlier this season. Just too low. This is just way too low of a line for Amari Cooper at 50.5. So that's the free prop pick of the day. Amari Cooper over 50.5 receiving yards. The props guys, they're just as much about where the line is set as it is the players that we're picking. And Amari Cooper is averaging 61 yards a game this season, but his props at 50.5 in a pretty good matchup. That's the free prop pick of the day. Amari Cooper over 50.5 receiving yards. I honestly think this prop line is off by like 10 points or 10 yards. Plug this in. Sam Gesicki or Chuba Hubbard in flex. Yeah, I don't like starting tight ends. Over running backs and receivers. But I'm not starting Chuba Hubbard, really, in any situation. Get Chuba Hubbard out of your lives. St. Brown or A.J. Green? Yeah, I'd go A.J. Green. Is Kirk more reliable than DJ Moore this week? It's really close. I would argue it's really close. Like, I feel like DJ Moore is pretty reliable. He's had at least 7 targets in every single game this season. So he feels reliable to me. But obviously Christian Kirk is a better play now with DeAndre Hopkins out. Hey, Sam, been here for 50 minutes. Love the app, by the way. Thanks for sticking around. Which 2 do I start? Gallup, Cooks, Foreman, also Lockett or A.J. Green. Yeah, we're not holding out hope for Lockett. Looks like Lockett's not going to play, so we're not playing Lockett. He's playing Tuesday now. We just don't know he's going to play. So you can't take that risk. So you're playing A.J. Green, who we know is going to play today. And I would be playing Foreman. I'd be playing Foreman and Gallup, I think, over. I feel like you got to play Cooks over Gallup, too. I'd probably go Foreman and Cooks over Gallup. Pick 2, Saquon Barkley, Myles Gaskin, Deontay Foreman, or Darrell Henderson. Thank you. Yeah, you cannot start D. Henderson. We can't start Darrell Henderson. It's brutal, but we can't start him. He's been a running back 1 for us this season, but we can't start him because Sony Michel has played too good in his absence to not see a lot of touches still. I think you have to start Saquon Barkley this week. It might not feel like a good decision, but you got to start him. He's coming off his best game since week 4. He had 95 yards last week. He's not on the injury report. He didn't practice once fully this week, but you got to start Saquon Barkley. Deontay Foreman versus Gaskin is definitely close too. Both those guys have pretty good matchups. The Jets' run defense has been worse than their pass defense this season. But I think Deontay Foreman is a guy that you also kind of have to start. The Steelers, no run defense has been worse than the Steelers over the last month. Top 10 running backs. Yep, you can see those on the YouTube Live. Link to the YouTube Live is in the TikTok bio. We are live on YouTube right now as well, where you can see my top 10 rankings for every single position and my favorite picks against the spread. Also, we already gave away the free prop pick of the day, which is Amari Cooper over 50.5 receiving yards. Just way too low of a prop for a guy averaging 61 yards a game. Also, you can see my favorite picks against the spread. I got 2 locks against the spread today. Those are on the YouTube Live as well. My 2 locks, I got the Titans beating the Steelers. They're underdogs in that game. And then I have the Bengals beating the Broncos. They're also underdogs in that game. Those are my 2 locks, though. I don't think either of those teams should be underdogs today. The Bengals versus the Broncos and the Titans versus the Steelers. The Titans really are a team that's built to dominate a team like the Steelers with how bad they've been against running backs. And the Titans offense really just revolves around the running back. I know they don't have Derrick Henry. I'm also, I think, deep down rooting for the Titans to make the playoffs, and so we can see Derrick Henry again this season, who was having one of the most historic seasons of all time before he was injured. Hey, Sam, is Michael Carter a start? Yeah, Michael Carter's a start. Michael Carter's a start this week. He is. And if you go to the WalterPicks app in the iOS and Android store, yep, WalterPicks is on Android now. The link to the app in the YouTube description and in the TikTok bio, or just look up WalterPicks on the Play Store. But if you go to the WalterPicks app and you tap on Michael Carter in the Start Sit tool, which is completely free for you to use right now, it's almost definitely going to suggest that you start Michael Carter over who you're comparing against. Because Michael Carter not only has a pretty safe floor, but his ceiling is high. He has a very high ceiling as a receiver. We've seen multiple games where he had 8 or more catches. There's very few running backs you can say that about. And so in a PPR league, it raises his floor and ceiling substantially. Like, Michael Carter has top 5 upside. We've seen him finish as the number 1 overall running back before. Back in week 8, he had 32 points in that game, 9 catches, 172 yards, and a touchdown. If he has 8 catches in a game and he also scores a touchdown, he's probably finishing in the top 5. So yeah, I like Michael Carter. I think he has got a pretty safe floor too. Like, his floor, he's not scoring under 8 points. So yeah, I like Michael Carter. I think he is safe. You skipped the second part. Oh no. Is Hollywood playing? Oh yeah, I remember that part. Also, isn't Parker a better play without Waddle? Yeah. Waddle being out definitely helps Parker. It definitely helps Parker. It raises his floor even higher than it already was. But is Hollywood Brown playing? I think he is playing. Let me pull this up. I think he is playing, but Lamar's not. And even if Lamar plays, I don't think Lamar's going to play well. But it feels like Lamar's not playing. We're getting some inactives now. Carlos Hyde is inactive for the Jaguars. That's good news for James Robinson. Zach Moss inactive. Chase Edmonds is active. DeAndre Swift is inactive. We were looking up Marquise Brown. It sounds like he's not going to play. Or that he is going to play, excuse me. But Lamar's not going to play. I believe that's the latest report I saw, but I'm pulling it up now to see if there's anything I missed. Yeah, Schefter said this morning. Illness, expected to play. Non-COVID related, obviously. He's expected to play. He's playing. I think that's pretty good confirmation that Marquise Brown is playing. But I don't think he can be started with a lot of confidence against the Packers. I don't. I'm taking the Packers against the spread in this one. I'm pretty nervous for Huntley in this game. CD or Jamar Chase? Yeah, I'm going to pull up my top 10 wide receivers. I actually have Jamar Chase ahead of CD Lamb, but I would argue CD Lamb's much safer. Royce Freeman or Craig Reynolds in a PPR league. I can't get behind starting Craig Reynolds. I just can't do it. Because let's be real, we got like 200, 300 people tuned in right now, and I would argue not a single one of us knew who Craig Reynolds was 2 weeks ago. I mean, seriously. Nobody knew who this guy was 2 weeks ago. And it was because he was undrafted. He'd never played in the league really before. I don't think he had a touch in the league at all before last week. And I would argue that last week's probably most likely going to be his best game of his career. He had 99 total yards. He still didn't even score 12 points because he didn't score a touchdown because he's on the Lions. Because he's on the Lions. And it's very hard to score touchdowns when you're on the Lions. I believe they scored the fewest touchdowns in the league. Maybe it's the Jaguars. But they do funnel a lot of touches to the running backs, and DeAndre Swift is inactive. So, I understand why he's on rosters. I think that he's really risky. I think he's risky. I don't think Royce Freeman's that good of an option either, but I think I like him more than Craig Reynolds. Evans or Moore this week, Sam? App says Evans. Yeah, you got to go Evans. With the DJ Moore injury, you got to go Mike Evans. Especially with Antonio Brown returning soon. This could be the last big week for Evans. And, guys, Marshawn Lattimore doesn't scare me at all. We've talked about Marshawn Lattimore on these streams, but he's having a really bad season. By far the worst season in his career, in my opinion. Like I don't view him as a scary corner this season. He's been torched by a lot of different players. But the Saints secondary as a whole has been bad this season. The Saints are a pass funnel offense, which is not good when you're going up against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who lead the league in passing yards, lead the league in deep attempts per game, and are just one of the most talented passing offenses in the league. So you got to start Mike Evans for sure. Sam, can you say Ha Young take the L? He doesn't want to do the loser punishment. Listen. If you have a last place punishment in your league and someone doesn't do it, and I this might sound harsh, and I don't know what the last place punishment is, but if the entire league agrees to a last place punishment before the season starts, and then the person who comes in last does not do it, they should not be in the league next year. They really shouldn't. They shouldn't be in the league next year. Because what's the point of last place punishment if someone's not going to do it? It ruins the last place punishment. But not just for this season, for all future seasons. Because nobody's ever going to do the last place punishment, because then they can just say, oh, this guy didn't do his last place punishment, so why should I do mine? So if you're going to do last place punishments, you should be in a league where it's also established that if you don't do it, you're out. You're out of the league. Sorry. We'll find someone who will do them. Because just don't come in last. Just don't come in last. Hey, Sam, I played against Kelsey, so I can't afford any mess-ups. DJ Moore, T. Higgins, Ayuka the Bazooka pick too. Yeah, Kevin. RIP to everyone who played against Kelsey in the fantasy playoffs. Walter was all over Travis Kelce's prop on Thursday night. I was actually at the Thursday night game, and Travis Kelce essentially paid for my trip to LA. I was there for 2 days, went to SoFi Stadium. Absolutely insane stadium, by the way. The game was insane. But yeah, Travis Kelce just absolutely going off. So you got to catch up. And I think to catch up, you go with T. Higgins and Ayuka the Bazooka over DJ Moore. I think both those guys have a higher ceiling. Hi again. Been here for a minute. Thanks for always answering questions. I got you, Zach. Huge PPR playoff week. Pick 2, Darrell Henderson, Mike Davis, Gabriel Davis, or AJ Green, or Chuba Hubbard. Yeah, I don't feel great about that many of these guys. Honestly, I think you go with AJ Green for sure. And then it's between Gabe Davis and Darrell Henderson. I'm nervous about Darrell Henderson coming back. I still think he could score a touchdown for sure this week. I think I would go Darrell Henderson over Gabriel Davis. But it is kind of close. I don't feel great about Darrell Henderson. Because Sony Michel is he's going to be involved. He's going to be involved. Is Claypool a start? Yeah, Claypool's a start. Hey, Sam, thanks for helping me win last year. Wanted to know who to start out of Devontae Freeman, Devontae Smith, Cooks, and Chuba start too. Yeah, I'm starting Devontae Smith out of the guys on this list. I feel good about Devontae Smith this week. I feel like a lot of people are going to end up benching him. He's had, I think, under 5 points in each of his last 2 games. He has had under 30 yards in each of his last 2 games. It hasn't been good for him because the Eagles have been running a lot. They are a run-first team. But this is a good matchup for Devontae Smith against Washington. I don't think they're going to be able to run as much as they have been against Washington. And part of the reason that I liked Devontae Smith this season was his playoff schedule. So I feel like we can't back out of Devontae Smith now. This is the time to buy into Devontae Smith. So I would definitely go with Devontae Smith for sure. Then between Devontae Freeman, Brandon Cooks, and Chuba Hubbard, I would argue Chuba Hubbard's last, and I'd probably go with Brandon Cooks. Gage or Devontae Smith, that one's close, man. That one's close, and I'm going to be honest. And I'm always honest with this because I'm wrong a lot. Obviously, I'm answering a lot of questions on these streams, talking about basically everyone on these streams. So I'm going to be wrong. But I'll also be honest when I'm wrong. I try to focus more on the process than the results. But I've been wrong about Russell Gage for 3 straight weeks. His floor has been higher than I thought because he had 0 points he had 0 points twice in a 3-game stretch this season. I think it was like week 8, 9, 10 or something. But then since then, he's gone over 10 points every game. He's seen pretty consistent volume. Russell Gage is safer than Devontae Smith in terms of the volume you can expect. But I'm still starting Devontae Smith over Russell Gage. I am. I'm starting Devontae Smith over Russell Gage. Devontae Smith over T. Higgins. Now, Kevin, we're getting into dangerous territory. Because T. Higgins has been so much better than Devontae Smith over the last 3 weeks. It hasn't even been close. T. Higgins has 3 straight games over 100 yards, and Devontae Smith has 2 straight games under 30 yards. We got to combine Devontae Smith's last 3 games, and then maybe we would be able to have a better game than what T. Higgins has done each of his last 3. So I feel like you kind of have to go T. Higgins over Devontae Smith. Like that one, I don't think we can talk ourselves into Devontae Smith over T. Higgins. I do like Devontae Smith this week, though. So should I play Amari, Cooper, and Parker, not Hollywood? Yeah, I would play both those guys over Hollywood Brown. Claypool or Ayuka the Bazooka, that one's close for sure. The Titans have not been good against receivers this season. They really haven't. The Falcons haven't been great either, but the Titans have been even worse. Claypool versus Ayuka the Bazooka is close to me. I still think I would go Ayuk, though. Thoughts on Patterson? Yeah, Cordero, the King Patterson, single-handedly bringing at least 20 of my best ball teams to the next round. I need Cordero Patterson and Devontae Smith to go off this week to try to advance to the $1 million round. But I'm feeling pretty good about Patterson. I don't know how you couldn't be. It's been interesting to me that Cordero Patterson hasn't been used that much as a receiver over the last month. Like his last few games, he's been used almost exclusively as a running back. He doesn't have a game with more than 4 catches in the last month. But he also has only gone under 10 points once since week 1. Only one time. His floor is so high. He's seen 15 plus carries a game. He's seen 16 carries in 2 of his last 3 games. He scored 3 touchdowns in the last 3 games as well. You got to feel pretty good about Cordero Patterson. Guys, we are heading into the witching hour of the WalterPicks Sunday morning live stream. Thanks again for tuning in, everyone. This is the real time where wins become losses and losses become wins, because this is when we actually make the decisions that lead to those wins and losses. Later on in the day, during the other witching hour, we'll find out if we won or lost. But now, this is the time where it actually happens. The decision moment that we're all in right now in the fantasy playoffs. This is when wins become losses and losses become wins. All right, James Robinson or Joe Mixon. Let me pull my top 10 running backs again. I'm in on the James Robinson narrative this week that he's going to do better without Urban Meyer. Carlos Hyde is also inactive. That's good news for James Robinson. And the other part about James Robinson this week is the matchup. He gets the Texans. This is the best matchup you could possibly have in this situation. The Texans have allowed the most rushing yards per game to running backs this season. They were just torched by Rashad Penny. And guess what? James Robinson is a lot better than Rashad Penny. That's why I have James Robinson ranked pretty clearly ahead of Joe Mixon this week. I have James Robinson as my number 5 running back. I really don't think you can bench James Robinson. We got a tight end question. Uzoma or Moreau? I love the deep tight end questions. Vinny G21. I'd go Uzoma, bro. Over. I would go Uzoma. I think he actually had 60 yards last week against the 49ers, which is like he was one of 2 tight ends this whole season to go over 60 yards against the 49ers. So I think you go with him. Good morning, Sam. Good morning, man. Antonio Gibson or Josh Jacobs? Yeah, I'm going Gibson. Looks like McKissick's going to be out again. McKissick's dealing with a neck injury now, and those are not something people mess around with. Like neck injuries end seasons. So I'm nervous for McKissick. Hopefully he gets back soon. But yeah, him being out is huge. Absolutely huge for Antonio Gibson. Jacobs or Robinson? Yeah, definitely Robinson. Caleb, I'm going James Robinson 100%. I'm going James Robinson in almost every situation. Again, you can see my top 10 rankings for every position on the YouTube Live. Link to the YouTube Live is in the TikTok bio. But I have James Robinson ranked number 5. The only running backs I have ahead of James Robinson are Dalvin Cook, Najee Harris, Leonard Fournette, and Alvin Kamara. That's it. I also think Nick Chubb's going to have a massive week. Nobody's asked me about Nick Chubb this whole day, which is probably good. Probably means everyone's starting him. But there's no Kareem Hunt. And Nick Chubb really has been quiet since he's returned from his injury. I think that changes this week, especially if Baker Mayfield's not able to play. I got Melvin and Javonte. Yeah, start Javonte for sure. I think both can be started, though. PPR League, Michael Carter or Darrell Henderson? Yeah, it's got to be Michael Carter. It's got to be Michael Carter over Darrell Henderson. Especially in a PPR league. Sony Michel will be involved this week. Arguably, he's going to get more touches than Darrell Henderson with how good he's played. Would you recommend in a standard league to flex Claypool, Foreman, or Wilson? Yeah, in a standard league, it's Foreman. It's forming. In a standard league, it's forming. And I appreciate the context, by the way. Like, telling me if it's a standard league versus a PPR league, it does matter. Like, a guy like Foreman's not going to catch any passes. And that's big. Which one player should I start? Brandon Cooks, DJ Moore, Brandon Ayuk of the Bazooka, Jeff Wilson, or Melvin Gordon? I think this one's Brandon Ayuk. I think it's Brandon Ayuk. I like Ayuk more than DJ Moore. I like him more than Brandon Cooks. I like him more than Melvin Gordon. I think it's him versus Jeff Wilson. I think is super close. The Falcons have actually been worse against the run than they have against the pass. But if it's a PPR league, which I'm assuming it is, because you didn't say, I would go Ayuk over Wilson. I would argue that Wilson is a slightly safer floor, though. Hey, Sam, please help. In the playoffs, pick 2, Henderson, Gallup, Sanders. I'm assuming you mean Miles Sanders because Emmanuel Sanders is not playing this week. Henderson versus Gallup are 2 guys that I'm concerned about, too. I'm nervous about both those guys. I am. But I think you go Gallup over Henderson. Ayuk or Devontae Freeman to flex. Yeah, I'm going Ayuk or the Bazooka over Freeman. Sony Michel or Crowder. Oh, Jameson Lee Crowder let us down so bad last week, guys. It was such a good week, too. It was really an all-around great week last week. We launched Android in the Play Store. So WalterPicks, you can get it on the Play Store now. Our beta version is live. If you haven't downloaded it yet and you have Android, link is in the bio or the description if you're watching live on YouTube. We hit, I think it was like 10 out of 14 props last week. We went 10 for 14. So the props absolutely cashed. It was the best week of props that we've had all season last year. All season last week. But Jameson Lee Crowder could have made it even more perfect. He was one of the locks in the WalterPicks app over, I think it was 9.5 PPR points. And he ended up dropping a touchdown he would have done it. It's just very tough to trust the Jets passing attack. It's very tough to trust it. And they had a better matchup last week than they do this week. I do think Jameson Crowder can still have a good game, though. Like, I will not be surprised if Jay Crowder goes for 20 points. I won't. But I think starting him is very risky. Wilson or Stafford? Yeah, let me pull up my top QBs. I got Stafford well ahead of Wilson. I think you got to start Stafford. What's the prop? It's Amari Cooper. Is Amari Cooper over 50.5 receiving yards? It's just way too low of a line. He's averaging 61 yards a game. It's the lowest his prop has been all season. Amari Cooper over 50.5 receiving yards. Hey, Sam, just joined the stream. Thanks, man. Would you put J-Rob over Josh Jacobs this week, PPR League? Yeah, 100% I would. Honestly, don't think it's that close. I don't. I have James Robinson ranked as my number 5 running back this week. You got to start it. I'm buying into the Urban Meyer narrative, but also ignore that narrative for a second and just look at the matchup for James Robinson, who's playing with no Carlos Hyde today. He gets the Texans. Texans have been the worst rushing defense in the league. James Robinson's over-under rushing prop today is 79.5 because they know that they had a lot. The prop makers lost a lot of money on Rashad Penny last week. We were hammering the Rashad Penny prop. It was like 39.5. He was playing the Texans. They're not making the same mistake with James Robinson this week. They set it at 79.5, which to me is a pretty good line. I won't be surprised when James Robinson goes over that, but it's a pretty fair line. Like, I think he's going to go for 80-plus rushing yards today. So, yeah, start James Robinson. Devontae Smith or Kirk? Oh, that one's so close, too. I really think I would go Devontae Smith over Kirk. It's definitely close, though. Tua or Stafford? Yeah, Stafford I have ranked ahead of Tua. Tua's got a super safe floor. Again, I'm playing him in my DraftKings lineup. If you're on the YouTube Live, you can see my DraftKings lineup on the screen right now. Again, link to the YouTube Live in the TikTok bio. If you are watching live on YouTube too, guys, hit the like button. Hit the subscribe button. It actually does help me out a ton. Tua, to me, his floor is 15. He's had at least 15 points in 75% of his games this season. The Jets have allowed at least 15 points to 15 straight quarterbacks. Like, his floor is 15, which is good. It's a good floor. And I think his ceiling's in the 30s. I don't think he's going to hit the 30s, but I think that's where his ceiling is. But I would still start Stafford over him. I would. I think Stafford's floor and ceiling are just as high, if not higher. Zeke or Montgomery? It's Monty. It's got to be Monty. it's time to hit the panic button on Zeke. If you have a guy like David Montgomery, you're starting him over Zeke. Zeke played without Tony Pollard last week, and he only had 12 carries in a game where the Cowboys led almost the entire game. He had 12 carries. Very telling game from Zeke last week. Really, really concerning. He said in the media this week he feels as good as he's felt all season. I mean, that's just clearly not true. Clearly, it's just if you're watching the games and he's splitting work with Corey Clement, like he clearly doesn't have the stamina or the health that he has had in the past to see huge workloads. The last time he played the Giants, he had 21 carries, went over 100 yards, scored, I think, twice, at least once. Like, I just can't see that from Zeke in these games moving forward. He hasn't had over 15 carries in the last month. And again, Tony Pollard out last week. He only 12 carries. Tony Pollard's playing this week, and Corey Clement's going to be involved. He still has a pretty good chance at a touchdown, but I'm just not feeling very confident about Zeke's workload. I am feeling pretty confident about David Montgomery's. Tyler Boyd or Michael Carter? Got to be Michael Carter. Can I trust Devontae Williams, or should I go Carter instead? Half PPR, yeah. I feel like you got to trust Devontae. He's gone over 20 points 3 straight weeks. He's been a top 5 running back 3 straight weeks. I think you got to ride with Devontae Williams at this point. I don't think Michael Carter, I don't think it's that crazy to think Michael Carter outscores Devontae this week. It definitely could happen. I won't be that surprised if it happens, but I think you start Devontae over Michael Carter. I think you got to. I think you got to do that. Jefferson or McLaurin in a PPR league? McLaurin, sorry. Yeah, don't bench Justin Jefferson. Do not bench Justin Jefferson. Start Foreman. Yeah, I think you can start Foreman. I don't want to start. I've seen Craig Reynolds. I'm not seeing any questions about Craig Reynolds in the YouTube live, but I'm seeing a lot of questions about Craig Reynolds in the TikTok live. Don't start Craig Reynolds. I'm sure some of you that are literally like, who is Craig Reynolds? Because literally 2 weeks ago, none of us knew who Craig Reynolds was. We got over 300 people tuned in across YouTube and TikTok right now, and I honestly do not think 2 weeks ago a single one of us knew who Craig Reynolds was. I look at depth charts basically all week, and I'd never heard of Craig Reynolds. Meanwhile, like he's looking like the lead back for the Lions this week. And the Lions do give running backs a lot of touches. DeAndre Swift leading the league in receptions per game. He was out this week. DeAndre Swift is out. But guys, Craig Reynolds had 99 yards last week. He didn't score a touchdown, and he didn't go over 12 points because it's so hard to score touchdowns for the Lions because the Lions are bad. So, yeah, I'm off of Craig Reynolds. I don't want to start Craig Reynolds in the fantasy playoffs. I would prefer to start Michael Carter 1,000%. I think I would even start Darrell Henderson over Craig Reynolds. Jimmy G or Justin Fields, the app says it's close. Been asking for a while now. Arjun Baller, thanks for tuning in, man. I know you've been a true OG of the stream. Thanks for sticking around. Thanks for using the app as well. We gave everyone 25 free start-sit comparisons in the WalterPicks app. So basically the start-sit tool is like completely free right now. We're also live on the Play Store now. So I appreciate you doing your start-sit comparison. I literally have spent over 2 years of my life now. I think we're getting close to over 10,000 hours of my life building an app that offers the best projections, but also gives ceiling and floor probabilities for you for every single player of every single game that you can just tap on 2 players and compare them for free. So you go answer a lot of these start-sit questions just using the app. So I appreciate that, man. But obviously that's not always going to be an easy decision still. And you're still going to have to make your choice. And so Jimmy Garoppolo versus Justin Fields, the app has those 2 close. The WalterPicks app, that is. Again, to download, link is in the TikTok bio and the YouTube description. I'm going Justin Fields over Tua, though, 100%, man. I don't think this one's that tough of a decision for me. You can see my top 10 rankings on the YouTube live right now. Link to that is also in the TikTok bio. And I have Justin Fields ranked number 10. I do not have Jimmy G in this top 10. I think Justin Fields can score 20-plus against the Vikings this week. I actually am picking the Bears to upset the Vikings. I picked them against the spread at least. The Vikings' defense has not been anything impressive this season. So, yeah, I would go Justin Fields. The rushing, you want quarterbacks that run, and you want running backs that catch in PPR leagues at least. DJ Moore or Mooney? Yeah, I'd go DJ Moore over Mooney. Please pick one, Gaskin, Parker, or Ayuk. Not many people have asked about Myles Gaskin today, which is a little surprising. because Myles Gaskin is in a pretty good spot against the Jets. The Jets have been worse against the run than they have against the pass. But in a PPR league, it's not such a straightforward decision to be starting Myles Gaskin or Devontae Parker. It's really not. Personally, I think I would go with Myles Gaskin. I think I would go with Myles Gaskin. His floor is really safe. His ceiling's obviously high. He could easily score a touchdown. I would argue Gaskin has a better chance at a touchdown than both these guys. The Jets have not been good against the run this season. I think the Dolphins beat the Jets pretty handedly today. Please pick 2 impossible choice. Ayuk the Bazooka, Parker, Gaskin, Odell. Yeah, again, I'd go Gaskin here. And then I think I would go Ayuk number 2. I like Ayuk more than Odell. I think Odell's ceiling is high, but I think Ayuk has a similar ceiling, but his floor is better. AJ Green or Crowder, Chad, man. Jameson, Elite Crowder has let us down big time last week. I think he could have a sneaky bounce back game this week, but certainly I'm not counting on it. And AJ Green's coming off a 100-yard game, so I think you got to go AJ Green. Thoughts on Penny? Yes, I am nervous about Rashad Penny being a trap this week. I am, and we were all in on Rashad Penny last week. I started him in several leagues. I told you all to start him last week. We had him in the DraftKings lineup as well, so we cashed with that. But he was playing the Texans, who are the worst run defense in the league, and that's not who he gets this week. No. He's up against Aaron Donald and the Rams. Much different than the Texans. So I think we got to slow the roll a tiny bit with Rashad Penny. I think he does have a hold on the number 1 spot in the backfield now, which is good, and I still think he has a good ceiling. But I'm nervous. I think that he's not a lock. Hey, WalterPicks, I got a question for you. What's up? What's the question? By the way, my name is Sam, not Walter. It's a classic mistake. Don't worry about it. Walter is the artificially intelligent algorithm that powers the WalterPicks app to give it the best projections that are out there. And they're also completely free for the rest of the playoffs. So check out the WalterPicks app in the iOS and Play Store, iOS App Store and the Google Play Store. Gordon or Jeff Wilson? Yeah, I'm going Jeff Wilson over Melvin Gordon. Sam. Andrew. Pitts or Knox? Dolphins D or Packers D? Yeah. I do. I have Pitts. I do have Pitts over Knox. I don't feel great about it. Pitts just continues to let us down. Someone says Nico Collins equals TD today. He actually has been playing a lot, Nico Collins. I won't be surprised at all if he scores a TD today. He's a pretty good tournament option, I feel like, on DraftKings and FanDuel at like minimum price. But yeah, I have Pitts ranked ahead of Knox, and I don't think you're crazy for starting Knox over Pitts though. Knox has a better matchup. Knox honestly has a higher ceiling than Pitts. I think I would honestly start Knox over Pitts. Dolphins D or Packers D? Definitely Dolphins. My question is, how do I get into the 32-man fantasy league? Good question, man. So I'm actually the commissioner of the 32-person fantasy league. I'm the commissioner. I created the league. I created the roles of our 32 creators for WalterPicks, and they all play in a league together. That's the 32-person league. So to get into that league, you need to join the WalterPicks team for next season, there'll be more info coming out about that soon. But if you're not going to do that, there might be a different way. I don't have the exact details for you yet, but next season, there might be a way for you to join the 32-person league. So stay tuned. Make sure you follow us on TikTok so you get those updates. Definitely, Christian, I'm starting Rashad Penny over Tony Pollard. You can't start Tony Pollard. You just can't. You can't do it. The report about him was that he was going to play a dozen snaps. You can't be starting someone that's going to play a dozen snaps. All right, guys, we are heading towards the end of the stream. And at the end of the stream, I always end the stream only on YouTube Live because it's a little easier to answer the comments on YouTube Live. I can pull them up right on the screen, and I can just go rapid fire in the YouTube Live. So if you're watching live on TikTok, I still have another 10, 15 minutes left of the stream, but I'm going to end the TikTok Live in the next minute or so. So come to the YouTube Live. Link is in the TikTok bio. I'm going to go rapid fire in the comment section to wrap up the stream as I always do. Tua or Taysom, it's important fantasy bother. I'm going Tua over Taysom. I honestly think Taysom Hill is super risky. this week. I'm nervous for Taysom Hill. I feel like this is a matchup that doesn't bode well for Taysom Hill. I feel like the Bucs are built to stop a guy like Taysom Hill because their run defense is good and their pass defense sucks. But the Saints' pass offense is awful and their run offense is good. So it's not a good matchup for the Saints. It's not a good matchup for the Saints. I could end up being wrong. That game could end up being high scoring, but it's not a good matchup for the Saints. DJ Moore, Devontae Parker. Yeah, I'm going Parker over Moore. Saquon or Javonte. That one's tough, Colton. But again, I kind of feel like you have to start Saquon this week. All right, guys. That's it for the TikTok live. Again, you can hear the rest of the live stream in the YouTube live. Link is in the TikTok bio. If not, good luck, and thanks for tuning in. All right, guys. We are in the best part of the stream, the rapid fire part, where I try to answer as many comments as I can. If you've noticed, by the way, I've started to end these streams a tiny bit earlier this year because I'm in my own fantasy leagues, and there's so much injury news and just reports to make sure, like, I just have to make sure my lineups are good before the game start, which is why I've been ending the streams closer to 12:40 this year than last year. I ended them like right at 1 o'clock. And then I was like trying to set lineups like while on live, and it just wasn't good. All right, Gibson or Javonte. We're going to go rapid fire for at least the next 10 minutes. Gibson or Javonte Williams. I'm not benching Gibson with J.D. McKissick out. Sam, should I start Murray over Hurts? Yes, definitely. And I would start Robinson over Carter as well. Both those. I have Kyler Murray as my number 1 overall quarterback. I have James Robinson as my number 5 overall running back. I'm not benching either of them really in any situation. A.J. Green or Gallup. I'm going A.J. Green over Gallup. The crying face makes me laugh. Claypool or Cooks or Devontae Smith. I like Devontae Smith this week. I do. I like Devontae Smith this week. I think this is the week. Part of the reason you drafted Devontae Smith was for these next 3 weeks. He gets Washington this week. He gets the Giants next week, and then he gets Washington again. And those are all good matchups. That being said, Claypool Dexter is the better play on paper. Like he's been better this season. The Titans are allowing the most points to wide receivers this season. So I think I would go Claypool, but I do like Devontae Smith. I definitely wouldn't go Cooks. I would play Devontae Smith over Cooks. I don't think I would play Devontae Smith over Claypool. Hey, Sam, you're the man. Thanks, man. Couple quick questions. First, is Steelers or Eagles D? Yeah, I think Eagles defense is a pretty good option. We don't even know who's starting at quarterback for Washington yet. 2 is Beasley or Gabriel Davis. Thank you. Yeah, I would lean Beasley over Gabe Davis just slightly. Just slightly. It's definitely close. Someone asking for the free prop pick. This was the free prop pick of the day. Amari Cooper over 50.5 receiving yards. It's just too low. We've seen Amari Cooper have 60 yards against the Giants already. He's averaging 61 yards per game this season. It's simply too low. DFS lineup. Yeah, let me pull this up as well as I answer some more questions. There's actually $300 left over in this lineup. So you can actually finagle it a little bit. So this is supposed to be a head-to-head contest lineup. This is the lineup I'm rocking with in a head-to-head contest. But in a tournament, I would change just a couple things. In a tournament, I would probably take Jeff Wilson out. I played Jeff Wilson and Deebo Samuel in the same lineup only because it was head-to-head. Like that's a risk-averse approach, right? It's a safe approach. But it limits the upside of the lineup a little bit because there's not a very good chance both of them score multiple touchdowns, for example. But one of them could score multiple touchdowns. So if I'm in a tournament, I'm going to take probably both these running backs out and play different running backs. Maybe Michael Carter. I like James Robinson in head-to-head a lot. I think James Robinson's going to have a good game. He's my number 5 overall running back. But in tournaments, I think a lot of people are going to be in on James Robinson. And so he's just going to be on too many lineups. Hey, Sam, Henderson or A.J. Green this week? Full PPR. Walter suggests Henderson by a couple of points. Yeah, no, screw that, Joseph. I'm going A.J. Green. I'm just nervous for Henderson. I'm nervous for Henderson with Sony Michel. I think I'm going A.J. Green over Henderson, especially if it's PPR. I'm going against Walter on that one. Head-to-head, obviously, like with projections, Walter is guessing how much Darrell Henderson versus Sony Michel is going to play. And I'm pretty nervous that the downside for Henderson is like under 12 touches. And if that happens, he could easily go under 10 points. Head-to-head with Swift out. Should I start A.J. Dillon or Foreman? Thanks. Yeah, both are good options. I think both are pretty good options. I personally would be going with Foreman, though. Hey, Sam, in playoffs, please pick 2, Jones, Javonte Carter. Yeah, just go with Aaron Jones and Javonte Williams. Just go with those first 2 guys. Do not bench Aaron Jones. Knox or Gesicki? I think I've Knox one spot ahead of Gesicki. It's super close. Yeah, you can see my rankings right here at the bottom of the screen. I had Gesicki one spot after Dawson Knox. I think Dawson Knox has a higher ceiling. I would go Knox, but I do think both are good options. Donovan Peoples-Jones or Beasley if Jarvis doesn't play. Well, aren't you going to have to make this choice before we know if Jarvis is playing or not? So for that reason, I think it's Beasley. If Jarvis doesn't play, then I think it's Donovan Peoples-Jones. So if you don't think Landry's going to play, then it's DPJ. Hill or Cousins? I'm not in on Taysom Hill this week. I'm playing Cousins. Michael Carter or Ayuk in a PPR league? Yeah, I'm going Michael Carter over Ayuk of the Bazooka. Amon-Ra St. Brown or Bateman, Dak or Fields? I feel like it has to be Amon-Ra St. Brown over Bateman at this point, which is sad. Definitely not what I thought I would be saying in week 15 of the season. But with no Lamar, I feel like it's Amon-Ra. And then Dak or Fields? Pretty sure I have Dak ahead of Fields. Yeah, I do. I would go Dak over Fields for sure. I do like Fields this week, though. DJ Moore, Devontae Smith, or Odell PPR. It's got to be DJ. Josh, it's got to be DJ. He's got at least 7 targets in every game. Terry McLaurin versus Amon-Ra St. Brown. Yeah, I'm playing McLaurin. Like, I'm not playing Amon-Ra St. Brown over McLaurin. Hi, Sam. Tight end, Tyler Higbee or David Njoku, and defense, Jaguars, Packers, or Titans standard league. Guys, I've drafted 500 best ball teams before this season, and 33 of them, which is pretty good, it's like 18% or something, were set to advance last week before the Monday night game. And I had a few more that could have made it if Tyler Higbee had just 5 points. Tyler Higbee was my most drafted tight end in best ball this season. And then he didn't play on Monday night because of a false positive, which caused 6 of my teams to get eliminated. Absolutely brutal. It was absolutely brutal. We'll post a video about my best ball update. But yeah, that was the first person I think that brought up Tyler Higbee this whole stream. So I've been waiting to talk about that. But yeah, I would go Higbee over Njoku. I would. And then the defense, I like the Jaguars. I like the Jaguars versus the Texans. No team has been better for defenses than the Texans. Javonte Williams or Jeff Wilson? I'm going Javonte for sure over Jeff Williams. Gaskin or Saquon at flex? I need this win to make the playoffs. Yeah, it's got to be Saquon. I just don't bench Saquon. I like Gaskin. The matchup's good for Gaskin. It's arguably the best, like, top 5 matchup that running back could have against the Jets. But I'm not benching Saquon at this point in the season. Claypool or Ayuk? Yeah, I like Ayuk a little bit more than Claypool. Hey, Sam. Love what you do for the FF world. Thanks, man. Last game of the season, playoffs on the line, start 2. All right, Alex. Michael Carter, Chase Edmonds, Antonio Gibson. Yeah, you got to bench Chase Edmonds. I think you got to bench Chase Edmonds. Like, Michael Carter is almost a better version of Chase Edmonds because he doesn't have James Conner around. Obviously, the offense is much worse, but Michael Carter has a very similar receiving upside but a better rushing floor than Chase Edmonds. And then Antonio Gibson, it's kind of the same thing. With no J.D. McKissick, you go with those two. You got to go with those two. Do I trade Darrell Henderson and A.J. Brown for David Montgomery? App says I should. Have a good Sunday. Love that trades are still happening in some leagues. Yeah, you should. You definitely should. 100% you should. David Montgomery still has league-winning upside. What's up, Sam? A.J. Dillon or Jeff Wilson or Henderson? Yeah, I think I would rank them Jeff Wilson number 1, A.J. Dillon number 2, and Henderson number 3. Again, I'm nervous about Henderson. Hey, Sam. Been following since day 1. Wow, Asim, thanks, man. It's been a lot of days since day 1. It really has. Can you please pick 2? Brandon Cooks, DK Metcalf, and Myles Gaskin. Need it for the playoffs. Yeah, bench Cooks. Bench Cooks for sure here. Brandon Cooks, to me, is not on the same level as these other 2 guys. DK Metcalf still has a really high ceiling. We know his floor is low, but same with Cooks. Cooks has a low floor and a lower ceiling. And Myles Gaskin is a pretty safe bet against the Jets. Claypool or OBJ? Yeah, I'm going Claypool over OBJ. Jeff Wilson or Gallup? I would go Jeff Wilson over Gallup. I do not think Gallup is a safe play by any means this week. Ayuk the Bazooka, Brandon Cooks, Renfro, or Higgins? Choose 2, please, Sam. I'm benching Cooks. And I think I'm benching Ayuk too. I think you go with those last 2. They've both just been balling. Both those guys, Renfro and Higgins, have just had a really good stretch. With no Darren Waller too, it's just so tough to bench Hunter Renfro. Vikings or Titans defense, or get nasty and play Vegas versus practice squad O-line. Consensus says Minnesota, but who pressures Fields? despite bad Chicago O-line. Vikings or Titans, defense is close. The Vikings defense hasn't been that great this season. Part of me wants to say the Titans. Javonte or Smith for full flex PPR. Walter has Williams 0.1 more than Smith. Yeah, I think you go Javonte. I actually think it should be more than 0.1. But I do like Devontae. Javonte or Devontae. There's really close pronunciation there. But I like Javonte more than Devontae this week. But I do like both a lot. And I really I do think this is the week where Devontae Smith shows his true upside. I think I already answered this one. I would go Higbee over Njoku. I would go the Jaguars defense. Penny or Javonte, I need W this week. Yeah, I'm playing Javonte over Penny for sure. Peoples-Jones or Julio. Matt Morris, man, this one's close. It's really tough to get behind Julio. He's just not – he's just clearly they're limiting his snaps. They don't want him to get re-injured. Donovan Peoples-Jones absolutely has an intriguing ceiling, but this one's tough because we don't even know who's starting at quarterback for the Browns. We don't. Is it going to be Case Keenum? Is it going to be Baker Mayfield? Is it going to be Nick Mullins? Because if it's Nick Mullins, you're no thank you to Donovan Peoples-Jones. So, look, there's some uncertainty here that makes me want to say Julio Jones instead. I want to say Julio Jones. Marquise Brown, Brandon Cooks, or James Conner. Yeah, I would go James Conner. You can't start Marquise Brown this week with no Lamar. I don't hate Brandon Cooks, but to me, James Conner has a pretty high touchdown ceiling still. Jaguars defense or Rams defense? Yeah, I'd go Jaguars. Those guys, the Seahawks-Rams games, by the way, they always are crazy. Those games are always crazy. Going back the last decade, those games are just always nuts. What's up, Sam? Pick one. Melvin Gordon, Michael Carter, Deontay Foreman, Jeff Wilson. Yeah, I'd go Michael Carter, then Deontay Foreman, then Jeff Wilson, probably, then Melvin Gordon. I think that's the way I would go. So I would start Michael Carter, especially if it's a PPR league, which I'm assuming it is. Yeah, so my take, I guess, for the Seahawks Rams game is just that it will be crazy. Whatever that ends up meaning after the game, I'm not sure. Taysom Hill or Russ? Yeah, I'm not starting Taysom Hill this week. Parker or Javonte Williams? I would probably lean Javonte Williams. Fields or Tua? I would lean towards Tua over Fields. I think I have Tua ahead of Fields, 2 spots ahead of Fields in my QB rankings. Gaskin or Devontae or Deontay? Yeah, Amar, you have to start Deontay Johnson. He's had at least 10 targets in every game but 2 this season. Got to start Deontay Johnson. Gaskin, I think I already answered that one. Hollywood, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Penny, or Deontay Foreman. I think I would go Foreman. Over all these guys. This is a good matchup for Foreman. The Steelers have been the worst defense against running backs over the last month. We ran through some of the numbers earlier in the stream, but man, they have been destroyed by running backs. It's been bad. 200 yards to Dalvin Cook. They allowed over 100 yards and 4 touchdowns to Austin Eckler. They've allowed 9 touchdowns to running backs in their last 4 games, and they're allowing over 100 yards per game to them as well. So start Deontay Foreman. I'm playing Russ over Taysom Hill. Odell or Gabe Davis PPR league. It's got to be Odell, man. Fire sports card pulls. I actually I just got some cards. Check it out. I got some cards sent to me. We got the AJ Dillon rookie card. Love to see it. I don't think any of the cards I actually got were worth anything, but they were cool. But yeah, I'm going Odell over Gabe Davis. Please help. Pick 2, Russell Gage, Michael Carter, Chase Edmonds, non-PPR. It's got to be Carter. Sheesh. Fire sports card pulls. liked the card, I guess. Maybe didn't like the card. I'm not sure. Please help. Pick 2. Yeah, again, I would go Michael Carter over Edmonds, over Gage, in a PPR and non-PPR league. I don't think the scoring mode changed that much. Matt, this is close. I would go Julio though. I'm definitely playing Devontae Smith over Hollywood Brown this week. Angelo, Ertz, Pollard, Gabe Davis, Rashad Penny for flex PPR. I'm not playing Ertz. I'm not playing Pollard. I'm going Gabe Davis. Just kidding. I didn't see Rashad Penny there. I'd play Rashad Penny over all these guys. For sure. Gabe Davis would be number 2. Ertz would probably be number 3. But Pollard would be number 4. The report was that he played a dozen snaps. That's not a good report. A couple dozen snaps, they said. A couple dozen snaps. So they're limiting his snaps. Not good. It's not good. It is also not good for Zeke that they're forcing him back either. Like Zeke only seeing 12 carries last week was bad. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in. That is my time. Good luck today. I'll be back live as usual Thursday night. We got to get those W's. Advance to the next week in the fantasy football playoffs. Again, thanks so much for tuning in. If I didn't get to your start sit question, I built an app that can help you out. The WalterPicks app in the iOS App Store, in the Google Play Store. Link to that is in the description. It can help you make your start sit decisions for completely free. Have a good one, guys. I'll be back Thursday.